Welcome to Raging Bullets, a comics fan podcast, episode 757. We continue our look at Marvel superhero Secret Wars.
Sean and Jim are back again, talking comic books with all their friends.
They'll spoil a story and break it down. These two guys talking comics are the best around. Raging Bullets,
The podcast show.
Raging Bullets,
The podcast show.
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, is hoping for an alien healer to resolve his issues any minute from now. And of course, he remains the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we are going to be talking about Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, issues 4, 5, and 6, as we continue our four-part look at this series. We're sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have a Summer of Superman one-shot. 40% off, only $3.59, as well as multiple various variant covers that look really cool. And also, along with that, I saw there was a facsimile cover of an old Superman issue, Superman 233, which this is the start of a very famous Denny O'Neil story, Kryptonite No More, Nevermore.
Oh, yeah.
Which, again, also, by the way, DC Finest Superman Kryptonite Nevermore trade paper is 50%, only $19.99. So I started seeing all these nice and cool connections. And again, one of the reasons this story is I love this story is I actually picked up the statue that's based off of that great Neil Adams cover of Superman breaking the kryptonite chain. So I saw that. I'm like, oh, I've got to throw this out there to everybody. So Summer of Superman facsimile, and a really cool trade paper. Thank you, DCBS.
Superman's outstanding right now, too. If people listening to this are not reading Superman, do yourself a favor and jump onto the Superman titles. There's some amazing storytelling going on right now. Over at InStockTrades.com, I did a search for Secret Wars just to kind of see what's out there. There have been so many follow-up stories to Secret Wars done by amazing creators. The original trade paperback, though, the book we're talking about right now, if you don't have this right now, it's $34.99 regularly, 38% off, only $21.69. If you never read the sequel is $34.99 regularly, 38% off, only $21.69. But they have the Bendis hardcover, for example, the omnibus hardcover of the Bendis Secret Wars story. And that one's going to be coming soon, so you can put a wish list together of things that you want to pre-order. They have Secret Wars by Hickman Omnibus. I shouted this out last week. It's $100 regularly, 46% off, only $54 for either cover of your choice. They've also got the Secret Wars Battle World trade paperback by Tom DeFalco. This is $15.99 regularly, 38% off, only $9.91. So lots of choices out there of Secret Wars content that you want to get. If you have not taken a chance to search through everything that's available to you on InStockTrades.com, everything is at a big discount. It's anywhere usually from 35 to 50% off, depending on where it falls into their deals of the week. So do yourself a favor and save some money and check out our sponsor, InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk Secret Wars. Our next discussion this episode, we're going to be continuing our look at Marvel Superhero Secret Wars with issues 4, 5, and 6. The writer is Jim Shooter. Pencilers are Mike Zeck and Bob Layton. Inkers, Jack Beatty with Jack Abel and Mike Esposito. Colorists, Christy Scheel and Nell Yomtov. Letterer, Joe Rosen. Editor, Tom DeFalco. Apologies for any name butchery because this is such an iconic series. Pencilers are particularly important on this one because this is one of the ones where we get some Mike Zeck and we get some Bob Layton. And we'll talk about that as we get to those issues. But issues 4, 5, and 6, this story is really starting to kick off into another phase. I didn't realize, originally reading it, that there's, different phases in Secret Wars. This is really the drop on the mountain and then wake up, then come back out to Galactus phase. And it's so funny. Last episode, we were talking so much about how we didn't remember Galactus. Now I'm really questioning myself. How did I not?
I know. Oh, God, yeah. And it's funny because, this is the issue that we're in the mountain issue, you know, and I said that all I said was the mountain because I didn't want to spoil anything, but I 100% remembered everything that happens here. And it's funny because vivid detail on when they're under the mountain, all that stuff.
Sure.
And that leads right to them interacting with Galactus. And I did not remember Galactus in this.
No.
And that was the thing that just really boggles my mind. And he's such a crucial piece of the story going forward.
Yeah.
That how could I forget that part of it? Which I don't understand how I did that. But we always talk covers. I love this cover.
Oh, it's one of my favorite.
Oh my God, do I love the look of the cover? Just beneath 150 billion tons stands the Hulk, and he's not happy. And then just a look of the Hulk holding up this mountain underneath the heroes. I was like, oh my God, that is. I still remember. I think that's why I remember so much in detail the mountain sequence. Because I remember as a kid seeing that going, the Hulk's holding up a mountain? What the heck happened? I still to this day I remember just that awe and just like, holy crud.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about this story is the sense of danger. I talk about that a lot on the show, but it is building this belief that these are the heavy hitters of Marvel, right? So there, it's Cap, it's Iron Man, it's the Hulk, it's Spider-Man, it's Reed Richards, major players in the Fantastic Four, She-Hulk, Hawkeye. These are like big name people, and they are losing this battle. This battle is one, they haven't lost the war, but they're losing this battle. And they're in a battle that's supposed to be to the death, which goes against who they are. And it leads to, as they've got these factions that are splitting off, because there's multiple different factions at work here. As these factions are splitting off, there's real conversation around, how do we get home? Is the only way home to do what the Beyonder wants of us? And it's really causing some moral conundrum. I really like this. It's a smart story. And I know it sounds like such a strange thing to say, but, this is an era when, comics were continuing to grow and evolve with the times. And I remembered this story for all of its cool battles. I didn't remember the themes that were really, really intriguing in this as much as I'm enjoying it right now. There's some really cool stuff going on here. They're blowing up bases here. These are heroes that if they we know they're going to get out of the mountain, right? But they don't got a home to go back to. At least on this planet.
And again, I loved, opening up because the last battle we saw the heroes had to hightail it out of there. Yeah. Bad guys had the upper hand at the end of the last issue. So what do the villains do? Destroy their base. So they have nothing to come back to. Brilliant. I love that. Now, again, this shows the great strategery that is Doom. He's going to leave no stone unturned, leave nothing to handle. But the other thing that really did catch me, again, obviously, it's the rebirth of Molecule Man. Just learning how truly powerful he is.
Yeah.
And seeing him and Volcana, I remember seeing those two together. I remember the beginning of everything. I remember all this stuff and going, damn, how do you stop Molecule Man? He is super powerful. If he were to actually flex his muscle, he could give Doom a run, because that's how powerful he is. And I love just, how we see Doom manipulating him because Doom is the master strategy. They're giving their villains time to actually show their characters, develop their characters, show them as, they're bad guys, but they're giving them their personality. I loved, just seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was something that really stood out for me too. I like the idea that the villains, yes, there's some that are thugs, but even the thugs are like organized and they work together. The Wrecking Crew is a crew. It's a true crew. So yeah, they stand up and they posture and all that because that's what they do in that type of crew. But they also recognize when okay, opportunities here, right? Am I going to go against Doom? Am I going to go against Molecule Man? Am I going to go against Doc Ock? They make strategic choices to sit there and say, this fight's just not worth it. And at the end of the day, they are guns for hire. Yes, they do go off on their own. Yes, they do have their own, crimes, and they end up, going up against certain villains on their own and doing all that. But when they're in these larger settings, they will clearly turn on a dime if it is to their advantage to turn. But they're also fine working with the group when it's like this and it's effective. It's like, we get to do our job. We get to break things, bang things up, commit crimes. If we're going to win this could be to our advantage. But the second there's an opportunity where, like, okay, it's a choice between Doom getting this and us getting nothing, we're going to turn on Doom. And if they thought they could win that. I like that about them. I like that feel. It makes sense that they're effective right now because they're all going after the same goal. They have a goal in mind. They want to win whatever Beyonder's prize is. So right now, if I'm hitching on to anybody, it's Doom and his robot friend right now. Although that's like, listen, am I going to fight this enhanced Ultron that is controlled by Doom? Or are we going to sit there as a team and kind of let's ride this wave and see where it goes? It makes a ton of sense what they do, and I really, really liked that part of this.
The character I do wonder about, and when we're done talking, I'm going to do some research on her, see if she made any other appearances, is Titania. I know Volcana. Yeah, I know I have some vague recollection of what happens with her afterwards, but I have no memory of anything going on with Titania after everything is said and done in Secret Wars. Do you have any memory of her?
I thought she appeared afterwards.
Okay.
And the only reason I'm vague on that one, it's been years. We're going back a long ways. I'm almost positive that she appeared after this.
Yeah, because again, she's a character I like. They're giving her some time to show her strength.
Yes,
both
she does.
As a powerhouse, but also as a character. And I like the fact that that's something that I really do enjoy about Secret Wars is it wasn't just about the heroes. It gave the villains a chance to shine and gave the villains a chance to be who they are. Because you see her picking up the stuff and just throwing, large chunks of the base at the heroes. Then the Wrecking Crew joins in, but with smaller chunks of debris. And I did chuckle that the one makes a comment with smaller chunks of debris. He even makes that joke that they're grabbing smaller pieces than her. But again, it's a neat thing just showing them just throwing, doing some bombing raids on where the heroes went to. And then again, we get that really cool sequence with Molecule Man going, oh no, let me step up one. Let me step this up one. And I was like, I loved how the villains played off of each other.
She does appear in a lot of stuff after this.
Oh, okay.
So this was her first appearance, but for obvious reasons. But she appears in quite a bit after this. I think to present day from what I'm looking at. I'm looking at an old man Hawkeye kind of image of her. But there's multiple story arcs. So I went to Wikipedia and just looked over quickly. I'm not going to read the whole thing right now. But I was almost positive. What I'm trying to remember right now is because, I was a Marvel reader after this, but I went back to reading Uncanny X-Men, and there's a couple other titles I grabbed. I jumped back into Spider-Man after this because of where we'll talk about why I jumped back into Spider-Man after this in the next episode. Spidey is one of those characters that I've always loved. He was one of my draws here, so I was reading him. I wanted to read more after this. It just didn't have any budget. This did everything as far as getting me very Marvel happy in this crossover. Did a really, really good job of getting me super excited for what Marvel was doing. I know she continued on. I read Secret Wars 2, which Secret Wars 2 is, so that we'll talk about some other time. That is a lot more of a crossover like we're used to now, where in some cases it did... there were so many tie-ins to Secret Wars 2.
Yes.
That's something that maybe someday we'll do. We'll have to take a look at the scope and scale of Secret Wars 2. I wouldn't mind talking about that one because it's very different than this. I don't want to derail us too much on that, but that's why a lot of the questions you're asking as far as did she appear again, I'm almost positive that like a lot of the cast and then some appeared in Secret Wars 2 because of the nature of the story of Secret Wars 2. But anyway, back to this. I really liked the teamwork aspect of what was going on with the heroes trying to survive the volleys that were being thrown at them. You know, whole parts of bases were being thrown at them. and these were literally like last minute, split second decisions to just survive what was like, this was going to land on them. There was no way to avoid that. It was, what can we do to minimize the damage and the hurt that's just about to come? Hawkeye throwing his arrow into the sky, Iron Man not being able to drop Captain Marvel, but, you know, using kind of, I really liked how it was like, we got to see a hero interacting with, I can't put her down right now, but I can do something. Yeah. And because there's no time. If he put her down, it wouldn't have worked. I really loved the writing on that, because sometimes they'll throw things in that are very realistic, where you're like, of course, he's holding her. He's going to have to react a little differently because of it. I just like the touch. You know, because it put me in this sense of urgency, and like, this is happening now. They don't have time to plan. It's just react. And I really liked the way that simple little thing of him holding Captain Marvel made me realize that they're reacting spontaneously to what's going on around them. It was neat. Then they got a mountain dropped on them. Yeah. So cool.
I'll tell you, I loved how they're like, hey, even Hulk's like, hey, you didn't even drop her. Not bad. Hey, I never dropped talent like this. And Cap's like, let's keep moving before, oh no. Like, the look of sheer terror on Cap's face is absolutely perfect. You know, and then you see a mountain drop on top of him. Yeah. I was like, whoa. And again, from the cover, you know what's probably happening. Hulk's holding up a mountain. But still, that's impressive.
Yes.
That's unbelievably impressive. And again, I think the power of the page turn. You see the mountain drop, you flip over to the villains, celebrating. You know, and you see, they're like, yeah, Molecule Man's like, yeah, that's right, I did that, And I loved how they did that thing, and then we go into that whole Thor and Enchantress bit.
Wait, hold on before you go further, though. You're talking about the villain's victory. The thing that I loved, look at the last person's reaction. Doom.
Yeah.
Doc Ock is like, that must have killed them, and Doom's like, perhaps.
Yeah.
He's the only one. They're all cheering, and Doom is the only one that's recognizing that this might not be over yet. I really like the smarts of Doom. Years of fighting, recognizing that, okay, yeah, it looks really good, folks, but not entirely sure yet. I liked that touch. I thought that was something, I don't remember noticing that before, but I did this time around, and I was like, oh, that's subtle, but powerful, because it sets him aside as just being a little bit smarter. You talk about strategy, right? Somebody who's leading your team. You want the guy that's in the front that is like, maybe if you want to win, right? You want the guy that's looking at this realistically, and it's Doom. That was just really cool. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on Thor and Enchantress, but I didn't want us to move on without pointing that out, because I just thought that was really, really cool. And such a small portion of it, but yet it's powerful.
Oh, I agree completely. And again, once again, the pencil work, we got a different penciler, but for me, there's not a jarring difference. It wasn't like I was like, what? You still get that same really cool look. And, last time we were talking about how it's difficult to give the masks emotion. Right here, we got pretty good emotion going on Doom's face. And the colorist and the inker using the shading on his masks to try to give it a different look to it. Plus his posturing up there where he's got the arms crossed, perhaps. It gives you a good emotional conveyance from Doom, and he's got the mask. So that's the difficult thing. So 100% agree with what you're saying. That is absolutely a brilliant page. But I also did love how they shifted to, on that same page, they had the Thor and the Enchantress, going on as well. Where
can I pause you for one more second? I'm sorry.
Sure.
You're referencing the penciler in this one is Bob Layton.
Right.
Are you familiar with Bob Layton? And this isn't a gotcha thing. I'm just asking a question.
The name is familiar, but I couldn't pull it up and tell you, he worked on blah, 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 this, that.
Not just I don't want to say just a penciler. He is a penciler. He is a writer. He's done a whole bunch of things. The Iron Man story with the alcoholism, exploring Tony's bout with that. This is Bob Layton. This is the guy who wrote that.
Cool.
or was a part of that whole piece. He was part of the team doing that. He and David Michelin. And apologies for if I'm butchering his name, but they just a great duo with that. Layton's done a lot of penciling, a lot of inking. He's been involved in just really, really cool things. You would have, he was a part of the X Factor series in the beginning when it was the first 5 issues. Layton, he wrote them.
Oh, cool.
Valiant, he was a big man in the behind the scenes as far as the Valiant universe coming together. So Bob Layton has had just a rich history in comics. It'd be remiss if I didn't. This series, Jim Shooter, Mike, Zeck, Bob Layton. I mean, you're starting to throw out names here who have had significant impact on comics. If you haven't read their work, people you're reading now were influenced greatly by their work. This is really an important series in the fact that the talent, and I'm underselling other people involved in this right now, and I'm not intentionally doing that. This series really had a who's who of comics involved in it. Very, very cool.
And I tell you, that's something that, I know you think it and I'm thinking it as well. Just the full creation team on this, coloring, inking, pencils, the whole 9 yards, lettering.
Yeah.
Everything, I think, did a brilliant job with this one. Obviously Jim Shooter gets a lot of the credit on this because he was the writer of it. And a lot of times writers do get it. And the pencils and the inkers, a lot of times get a heavy credit on there. And again, they're putting a lot of work into it. So they should get credit. But this is a full art team. Artful creation team that really did craft something that stands the test of time. We're reading this now in 2025, and it's not jarring. It's not throwing us off. This story could very easily be plugged in present-day comics.
Yeah. Hey,
very easily.
The other people that I admittedly, because I don't work in comics, editorial and what that whole thing looks like as far as putting this type of thing together, I don't fully understand that. So I'll admit as a fan, I understand that everybody behind the scenes that helps putting this piece together are part of the puzzle process. Never meant to be slighting anybody, but editorial has a huge impact on work like this. So, shout out to them, and it's never meant as a slight. Obviously, the fact that we're talking about this quality work is applauding everybody who was involved in the creation of this one.
Oh, big time.
But
I'm big time.
I promise not going to let you talk about Thor and Enchantress.
No, dude. I get it. I'm with you on that. Yeah. But again, I loved how we had that.
Wait a second. I got one more. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Can we tell people you've almost killed yourself today?
We never talked about how I cut my finger pretty good.
Right.
And I was washing dishes and I dropped a glass and the glass broke and cut my finger all in one motion, which I still don't know how it did that. And the first reaction I had was, I'm going to need stitches because you get that deep zing, and blood starts pouring and you're like, I'm going to need stitches. I'm packing it up, doing everything I need to, and it's not slowing down, and bled right through a heavy-duty Band-Aid, and I'm like, this is going to need stitches. So, because of all the stuff we've got going on with Dad, one of the things is Dad's a blood thinner, so we have all these, blood stop agents, so I'm like, let me try some of the stuff we do for Dad, and I'm throwing that on. I threw like 3 layers of the stuff on there, and it's, started slowing down, and I think I'm okay. I don't think I'm going to need stitches, but as I was telling Sean before recording, Sean's like, the word think is a problem.
Yes, you keep telling me you think you're okay. And I'm like, sitting there, I'm like, we're recording right now. And I'm like, I'm waiting for the thud. And I'm like, that's not a good thing.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to bleed out from the cut on the finger. Okay. What I'm going to run the risk of is banging my hand on something and ripping open the wound. That's what I run the risk on. And I just got to be careful. It's my left hand, so that's nice because it's not my dominant hand. So give it a couple days. It should heal up nicely, and I should be okay, in theory, I think. Maybe.
Wait, you know what I got to say to that, Jim? Perhaps.
Yeah.
This is your mountain.
Yes. This is my mountain.
We'll send over some pretty alien to take care of you. It'll be...
Ooh, that'd be nice. Yeah.
All right. I'm being a jerk enough. Please go ahead and take care of Thor.
Okay, well, the Thor and Enchantress thing was awesome, I think. Because again, we saw this initially last issue where she was in the prison that they had set up, and Thor freed her, and they went away. Because again, 2 Asgardians trapped on this planet, trying to figure out what's going on, and you see this. They have a long history, these two together. So it's kind of neat that they would have that immediate connection. They would have that again. And I loved, and you mentioned before we were recording that there's a side story, an issue of Thor that actually dives deeper into these sequences between the two of them. And I thought that was neat. That's another writer later down the line said, you know what? Let's flesh out this story, because really it's 6 pages, 6 panels of story. But again, if you understand the history, you could see how it would flesh out, how Thor would do this, how Thor would be tempted by her to maybe, do something. But it's one of that neat moment because the earth shakes, they realize something happened, and Enchantress teleports them back to where their people are, where his people were, and he sees the fortress laid in waste. He sees all of Doom's forces there, and I love just how it goes from that one moment of where the kind of the budding romance between them, but it's not budding because as with the character history, it's a lengthy story between these two. Yeah. I love how Doom is like, kneel now, surrender now, and we'll kill you quickly. And Thor's like, you honestly think I'm going to surrender? And Doom's like, no, but just common decency demanded that I give you the opportunity. This, for me, was a great dialogue back and forth between the hero and the villain. And again, it's a lot of the Thorism, so it's the, you do really, you can hear that, that tone in his voice of, I am Thor, and then you have the Doom, where you have the evil Doom, and I just like, these sequences back and forth. I absolutely love this. And again,
once again, perhaps. The word Jim Shooter's effective use of the word perhaps. I don't remember that word standing out so much in comics. In this particular issue, Jim Shooter is dropping the word perhaps and using it quite effectively in this.
Oh, big time. And again, great artwork where, Doom's like, Thor's like, yeah, I'm standing alone, perhaps, and looks at Enchantress and she just quietly walks away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 13 on 1 odds, I can see why she would. Now, here's the thing. If she had stayed in the fight and the two of them fought, this battle would have been dramatically different.
Epic.
Because those two Asgardians could have held them off. Now,
at the very least, it would have been epic.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. And I loved, again, it's who she is, and you understand why she did exactly what she did.
Yeah,
I completely agree. This was, again, one of those things where the writing fits the characters, both characters. Well, actually, all 3, Doom included. Doom's got to kill. Doom knows I have to kill the bad guys. So he's playing to the end. So he's going to kill Thor. Or he wants to kill Thor. Plus, he also wants to test his latest enhancement that he did to Ultron, which I was like, you take Ultron, who's already super powerful. Oh, yeah. Let's turn him up a notch. I'm like, oh, man, Doom. But leading up to that shot, Thor just taking on all of them. Yes. I absolutely love just seeing the power of Thor and just how truly badass he is. I was like, this was an awesome sequence. If you didn't read Thor and you're reading Secret Wars, this is something that could make you go, ooh, he's cool.
And it's growing up. I was never like a big Thor fan. Like if I got those 3-packs of comics and Thor was a comic that was in there, I was kind of like, oh, I wanted X-Men or I wanted Spider-Man or something like that. And it's not Spidey-Man, Spider-Man. Or I wanted a Marvel team up or, those type. There were certain books that I wanted. But then I would read the Thor issue and I'd love it. So I've always enjoyed the character, but if you were to, like, as a kid, ask me growing up if I liked Thor, I'm like, he's lame. I was one of those characters. I always felt that way about Thor. Now, when you're 100% correct in everything you're saying, like, I love him in this. He's fantastic in this. And truly, I can't think of a bad like moment where I've ever read Thor. Like they had a great Asgardian crossover with the X-Men. That was it was X-Men and New Mutants, and it was done through the annuals, I believe, years ago. I'm going back. It had been in the 80s or early 90s. It was a big deal. It was Art Adams was involved with the artwork of it, and that which really stands out to me. As far as it just being beautiful artwork. And I loved the whole Asgardian saga. I loved the Asgardians. Thor was in it. The whole gang, the whole shebang, and it was a great story. When I read him in the Avengers, always love him. But yet he's been one of those characters that I've always put in like the back of, I don't know, Thor. I'm not really excited about Thor. Even the movies, like when they were doing a Thor movie, I was kind of like, all right, Thor movie. Loved it. Yeah. I just loved it. Absolutely loved it. They have these shorts on Disney Plus. It's in between. It's what Thor was during a Civil War, because Thor wasn't in Civil War. And it shows him rooming with some other guy, where he was kind of during that time, he's just like any calls from Rogers, any calls from Tony Stark, those type of things. It's really, really funny. And, kind of in the vein of Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of funny. And I'm like, I really like the character of Thor. I just don't know why I have like this block where I can't get there. Because there's been so many runs of Thor where I've gone back and I've started reading them and I've always enjoyed them. I just don't know what it is about the character that I have this block when it comes. This is an absolutely outstanding battle sequence with Thor. Reminds me of some of the bigger wrestlers like Big Show and Braun Strowman and things like that. Like where people will gang up on them and all of a sudden they will burst out and you just believe it. Like Thor does that here. They're beating him down and dude bursts out of it. And it's like so cool the way that it's done. These were some absolutely brilliantly put together panels. Great Thor moments. It like should be beating me over the head of like, Thor is awesome. That's really what I should be feeling with this. And I've got to get there because I really do like the character more than I'm realizing.
Well, and everything you're saying, I'm like echoing right along with you, nodding my head. Mm-hmm. I remember as a kid never reading Thor. Mm-hmm. And if he was in an Avengers title or a crossover, I read it. That's when I would have maybe read them. But I don't really remember reading that many stories that had Thor in it. But, and now I'm going through, and when we talked about him on the show before, I've continued reading Thor. That period, yes. I'm going to go through, and I'm going to go through all the way to present because I was like, man, this is a great character. I missed out as a kid. Yes. I'm making up for it. And again, seeing here, I missed out. I read this fight sequence, and for whatever reason, I missed I didn't start picking up Thor after this. I don't know. But again, I love this moments, and I loved how, the disintegration ray that they power up Ultron with, you think kills him. There's trace left of his, of his cape. Yet Enchantress gets some tears going out of her face going, oh no, and you flip the page and you just see one part of an arm, a tattered part of a hand. And I'm like, okay, Thor's still alive. Nice.
And I love later that they explained how he got away.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, really cool. The other piece, too, is I like Doom. Killing Thor, the perception of killing Thor wasn't enough. He is going on to who else is still out there. He is on to the next phase. The X-Men are not yet accounted for. Because, they've dropped a mountain on the one crew. And he's like, wait, we're not done yet. The X-Men are not accounted for, nor is Magneto. Galactus remains a possible problem. We're going to return to Doom Base. We're Doom Base. But first he's got to deal with the person that turned on him. And then as an example, and that's what Doom was doing there. It wasn't that Kang was a threat to him now. It was that I need to make sure that everybody understands that Doom is in control here. That was a message that he sent in that moment. It wasn't enough to destroy Thor. It was, if you turn on me, this is what's waiting for you. I loved that. He uses Ultron now as this weapon to really keep everybody in line. Even Molecule Man, who we saw before, drop a whole mountain. He's in shock right now. Doom needed to, I'm not advocating for this, but I'm saying Doom needed to do this because Molecule Man could be a little full of himself after that. The celebration, when everybody's in the background, they're all rallying behind and high-fiving this dude. I think if Doom did not do this, there would have been some private conversations going on with the Wrecking Crew and Doc Octopus with Molecule Man saying, what do we even need Doom for? We got you.
Yeah.
This ended all of that right there. This was really, really smart on Doom's part.
Oh my God, yes. This right here was a great Doom moment of, keeping them in check.
Yeah.
And even he says, I trust that lesson is not lost upon the rest of you. And I loved how they did that, and you see Molecule Man's reaction.
Yeah.
They made sure to show that for that exact reason. Everything you're saying. Molecule Man is the guy who could to give Doom a run for his money. This right here put Molecule Man back in check. There's no way Molecule Man would even think of stepping against Doom. And I loved that. And again, I like how the shift, you're giving each of the team plenty of time to grow and develop.
Yep.
We have a great villain development here. Now we shift back to the mutants. We got to talk about who they are.
And to the point about the mutant piece, reading Uncanny X-Men Monthly at this time, and I know you're a reader as well. When you read this is an example of Shooter understanding the whole universe and making sure that this is where continuity is important. You do not want this X-Men team to feel different than the current development they're going through in their own book. Because now you've zapped them to here. Because that's where in Uncanny X-Men, I'm going through the tie-ins that lead up to this and the one afterward just to kind of see how characters got here. The X-Men are going through what they are going through here in their own book as far as the interpersonal dynamics, Xavier walking again and taking more control, and the leadership difference, with Storm is the leader of the team right now. Cyclops has been thrust back in. Cyclops always having a bit of an issue. He was the chosen one for Xavier for years. He was the original team leader. He is the golden boy, if you want, of the X-Men. And Storm being the leader of the team is something two of them have dueled for this spot.
Yeah.
And I love that you've got this 3-person dynamic right now of all of them have, I guess you could say, have an argument as far as why they should be leader. One of them, to me, is the one who should be leader right now. And it's actually having a bit of an effect on this team. But I like that the X-Men are not just about this battle for leadership. They're also about friendships and love and interpersonal relationships. What's going on with Peter and Kitty has been something that they have been teasing for years at this point. And Peter's there where he sees a future. And I like how he's referencing the fact that she's not old enough yet. But, kind of which is true. and I like that, Peter's thinking of her, wants to get back home to her and, wants to continue developing who they are going to be at that point. It's such an interesting sort of story. And we're going to have to talk a little bit about Rogue because I remember when Rogue was put on the team, we got this member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants who's come to the X-Men looking for some help with her issues with her powers. And she's not there yet. We're used to Rogue. I mean, Rogue's leading the team right now in Uncanny X-Men. Very different dynamic with Rogue over the years of who she's become on the team. I think it has to do with the length of her hair. This is definitely a very, very different Rogue than what we were used to. But you see how this is the building blocks that would eventually put her to be the woman that she is now in the X-Men books. And I love all of this. It's just really, really good stuff.
Dude, man, I tell you, I've totally, again, it's like we talked earlier about this version of Wolverine, completely forgot about this guy, how cool and fun he was. Rogue is another character, man. I completely forgot about this version of Rogue.
Yeah.
And as I'm reading this, I'm reminded, oh yeah. And again, it shows great usage of, again, this shows creation knowing what's going on in the books, what's going on in their universe. The Peter and Kitty story, for me, they've always been I always wish that couple would get together.
Mm-hmm.
I always root, still to this day, will always root for Peter and Kitty being together, just because I loved how I loved reading how that thing developed and how it grew. And that was, that all happened during our childhood when we were reading this, when this first came out. And I loved seeing that. But one of the things that, as I'm rereading old X-Men,
mm-hmm.
something that's really I didn't now 100% admit I didn't see this as a kid, but I'm seeing it now. Xavier's a bit of a jerk.
Wait, and there's covers of the X-Men where Kitty Pryde calls him a jerk.
Yeah. And I remember as a kid never thinking Xavier is a jerk. I remember, either defending him or just, thinking of it as just teenage lashing out at adults or something like that. I never actually sat back and said, no, Xavier's a jerk here. And again, you're seeing that big time here, and I 100%, it's one of those things where I'm like, I like Xavier and the power he has, but he should not be a field general. He is not a field general. He is the sit back, the study, I would rather him hang back, and either let Scott or Storm, and you can argue out either one, be the field general.
Do you remember this era?
Yes, kind of.
Because I remember reading this monthly. I was getting this. I mean, this was coming to my house monthly in the brown paper wrappers. And I remember really disliking I love Xavier, don't get me wrong, and I didn't hate Xavier, but I hated what he was doing. I'm like, I get that he's walking out. I think it's way cool. I loved the story. I think this was a very smart story, what they did. Getting him back up and running and being able to be in the field again it added certainly an interesting dynamic to all this. So this was brilliant storytelling with him. And it did exactly what you're supposed to be doing. He's a jerk right now. Yeah. He's letting his own ego, instead of trusting the students that he has created and built to be at this point, to be these strong leaders and to be able to be this, he's actually disrupting the team.
Yes, big time. He's not helping, mm-hmm. And I think and again, it's funny because as a kid, I didn't really see that. I'll admit, I didn't see just how much of a jerk he was when I was reading X-Men. And I was reading this time period, and he, again, going back and I've done a lot of rereading of stuff I did as a kid, and I see it much differently now. And I see the Xavier stuff, and I see just that, what I thought was a cool team dynamic is like, oh, okay, I see what they're going with this now. And it makes me appreciate it even more. I tell you, it's one of those things I highly recommend to people go back and reread the stuff you read as a kid.
Yeah.
Whatever era that is, go back and reread it now. I'll tell you, you'll look at it and you'll see stuff that you didn't see before. You'll see a whole other level to the story. Especially reread stuff that you loved as a kid. You're going to see something different. You're going to still love it, but you're going to see different things to love about it. Because again, I still love this era of the X-Men. 100% still love it. So
oh my God, yes.
It's added to my love of it.
Storm should be the field leader with Xavier and Cyclops advising. Because they provide tremendous value, but the end result should be they should be backing Storm's decisions and giving her advice. They should be her generals. Basically, really just advising her on anything that would add value to her decision making. It would be working perfectly because Storm, with this particular team, has the most field experience with this particular current field experience with this group. They are. The disjointed reaction that they're having is because of the fact that they do not have a confidently defined field leader right now. Xavier's trying to be that, but it's not working because he doesn't have the experience for it, and they're not confident in responding to him. He's barking orders versus them organically responding to a strong team dynamic. And I love that. I actually think it's very smartly written. And it's made this story just feel very, very real because their dysfunction is affecting them. You know, they're not falling apart by any stretch. They are an incredibly competent team, and in spite of the dysfunction, they're a dysfunctional family at times. And it's the family aspect of the X-Men is what I've always loved. So that part is totally working. They are doing okay in spite of the dysfunction.
Yeah.
Enter Magneto.
Enter Magneto. You know, and again, I don't really remember any of this stuff going on. You know, with him and Wasp, I don't remember any of that. When we started rereading this, all this stuff was like, oh wow, and I loved how this sequence played out. Where again, you're showing the power of Magneto, pulling metal from subatomic, blending it all together to make a comb.
4 panels, dude. 4 panels devoted to the creation of a comb.
Yeah,
and it was great.
Yes.
I'm sorry not to rail on you. I'm like nodding along with you and going, oh my gosh, he is so right. 4 panels to make her a comb.
And one of the things, the art layout, it's 4 panels, but they did 4 smaller panels.
Yes.
So they didn't waste space, but they did give it multiple generations, to really show. And they show, again, the amount of energy that, Magneto is pulling from this. Because again,
it's over half a page.
Yes. But they could have,
I'm not disputing that, but like we do have those 4 smaller panels and a larger one where he's giving her the comb. It all works. Actually, I want to say, I'm actually on the other camp of where I'm like, they absolutely did everything they should do with this. I don't remember the comb sequence, but as I'm looking it through, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's putting together, like the 1 page beforehand, the buildup is he's using these powerful forces to be able to pull all these metal together. Then you flip the page. He's building a comb. And it's great. It was so brilliant. I absolutely love everything about this sequence because of what it is. And I thought it was great. The master of magnetism. And we've got Galactus, like at the end of this. We're going to talk about what's going on with Galactus. This actually was almost as the segment was almost building like it was something that powerful.
And again, it leads to this great moment of where Wasp, we get the realization that Wasp this whole time has been playing Maggie. She's been playing Magneto the whole time. And I loved seeing that because, again, I didn't remember this sequence from when we first read it. So reading it this time, I'm like, what the heck is Wasp doing? Mm-hmm. This doesn't make sense. And then you see, oh, no, she's been playing him the whole time. Okay, that makes sense. That's the leader of the Avengers. Yep. I loved that. And she picked her shot when to make this happen.
It was also a woman taking advantage of the era, right?
Yeah.
Magneto was like playing off of the, I got to take care of you, really sucking that whole piece in. He thought he was manipulating her when it was the other way around.
Yeah.
I thought that was, because Magneto was doing a lot of manipulation there too. What he was doing. He's putting on the charm and, trying to get her to, basically, let's kill everybody and we'll get whatever we want. He's really building her to that, knowing that he can't start with that, but he's got to get her there. And I love that when he's telling the X-Men, she agrees with me. That's where the reveal comes in at, she's talking about what a pompous man he is at that point. I thought that was so great in how all of that played out. You're right. I think deep down we all saw it coming, but we were all asking the same question, like, Janet, what are you doing? Like,
now here's the thing. The one panel that, I'll be honest with you, I initially missed it, mm-hmm. And then I'm like, wait, did she just, when she's like sitting there saying, oh, you pompous, overbearing jerk, mm-hmm. Did you really think I would play along with you? Mm-hmm. I just wanted to just plan. Now that I know you're the most evil scum since Hitler, she just called Magneto a Hitler. I was like, oh, that is awesome.
She pinched his cheek.
Yeah. But here's the thing, does she not realize what she just did?
Oh yeah.
I don't think she knows what she truly just did. And again, it further shows just the sheer rage that Magneto has going on right now. This wasn't just about her, playing him. She just called him Hitler. I'm like, that is right there. Like, oh, that is something you never want to do to Magneto. He's going to hunt you down.
I wonder if she did know. And let me explain why. Okay. So this is the Avengers, right? Magneto is a major villain in the Marvel Universe. They've encountered him before as a villain, right?
Yep.
The Avengers wouldn't have files on him? Like, they wouldn't know the Beast was a member of the Avengers? They wouldn't know Magneto's background? I don't know. I guess I'm wondering, like, I'm of two minds. So there's the part where I'm agreeing with you. Don't get me wrong. I see that pathway, but here's the other pathway. You're Wasp. You're dealing with overwhelming odds right now. You know, you've got Magneto, and the X-Men are a question mark, right? Because they're there. What are they doing? So right now, you want to get Magneto off of his toes. You're going to play it as emotions. That would do it. You know what I mean? From a strategic standpoint, you got him really emotional. It's the only way you're going to take advantage of him is if he's not, really focused. She's going out of her way to smack him hard. I see the other possibility of she doesn't know his background and just did that by accident, and is getting a reaction because her pinching his cheek and kind of calling him pompous and all those other pieces is going to have a similar effect. Where like the reveal is, listen, dude, I was playing you all along. That'll do the same thing. But I wouldn't be surprised to find out she did in fact know and was using that again as a gut punch for the purpose of let's get this guy off of his toes. So that way he's emotional, because there's nothing worse, right, than somebody we know with the mutants and with these powerful heroes that usually focus is when they're most dangerous, like Doom, right? Doom, you don't want Doom focused on a strategy to try and come, because even if you're overpowering Doom, if Doom can think through things, he's got a Reed Richards-like mind, he is going to counter you with smarts. Magneto is brilliant. Aside from, his own drive and things like that, his passions are traditionally what get in his way. And it's when Magneto is at his weakest is when he's overly passionate about something. He tends to make mistakes. And I could see her reacting to that. She did it no matter what, but I wouldn't wonder what was going on. I would love to see what the Avengers files looked like in this era. Did they know Magneto's background or not? I don't know for sure.
I don't know. And again, my initial gut is that she didn't know. Because I don't, and I agree with you. She could have known and did that to throw him off his game. Because again, that would be it. But I can't see a hero going that low, hitting that far below the belt. But again, I don't know for certain. This is one of those questions I would love to ask, I would love to ask creators on this one. When they threw that line in there, was it done intentionally? Was it done? Did she know? That's something I would love to know.
Jim Shooter be the guy to ask.
Yeah.
You get a chance to see him at a con. I'd be the one. I'd love to ask. I actually would
love
to
ask with you. I've written it down. If I ever get a chance to meet him, because I never know what to say when I meet a creator. Other than saying you work so awesome. I would love to have him sign this issue. Have him sign this issue of of Secret Wars, and then ask him directly about that. Saying, hey, I always wanted to know this, and see what he says.
And the answer is going to be one of two things. Either there is some detailed answer to it, like, dude, I don't know.
Or he'll say, I really don't remember back that far.
Yeah, I don't know. He's being megalomaniacal. It's like, Hitler seemed to be the right reference at that time.
Yeah.
Her escape was cool because Magneto was just he was where you were saying. He was going to destroy that ship and just wreck it. Charles stops him. And it leads to the typical Charles Magneto moments where it is a battle of philosophy. She literally, if Charles was not there, I think that whole vehicle would have been crushed.
Yes. Oh, big time. And he very easily could have done it.
Yeah.
It was Charles who distracted him, giving her enough time to get away.
This Under the Mountain sequence was really, really terrific. I remembered so much of it, but I didn't remember, I knew that they blasted their way out. I didn't remember everything that went into blasting their way out. The desperation of this was, because this was a very, two people, managed to put together a safe space for them to temporarily be able to buy a little bit of time. And that's really what this is. You've got people who are battered and beaten up. They have to wake up Reed Richards to say, dude, we need a plan yesterday. They're pulling parts from Hawkeye and from Spider-Man. And I love how they're Iron Man's suit. They're trying to take this technology, put it all together to try to find a way to tap into the powers of, in a confined space, the remaining powers of the people that are in there with them, to unite all that together to be able to do something that the only person that could really probably tunnel his way out is holding the mountain up.
Yeah.
I love that. And this is also a mountain where we find out later the faint tapping that they heard was Thor at full strength trying to beat his way through.
Yes. Dude, I'll tell you, I love this moment so much. And again, as I said, when we first started talking, I remembered with such vivid memory this sequence with them, the mountain on top of them. When Hulk started getting, started weakening a little bit,
Yes.
Richards egging him on, getting him angry, knowing that the angrier the Hulk is, the stronger the Hulk is. And while he's doing that, he's taking, I need your servos, Spidey, I need your circuitries, Hawkeye, I need your arrows. Okay, let's do it. Let me look at Iron Man. Let me look at your arrow. Oh yeah, just what I thought. Okay. And then just Richards being Richards, man. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. The big brain. I absolutely love this sequence, and I even love the little bit attention to detail about how Johnny Storm couldn't flame on to burn out because that would burn up all their oxygen. But he could generate a little bit of he could channel his energy from his hands into the device that's pumping extra energy into, Iron Man.
Yeah.
Him and Captain Marvel channeling their energy, firing it up, and we get this massive, massive explosion. I absolutely love this. Again, going back, I remember this so vividly. And again, it was one of those things where you're sitting there like, hoorah for the hero. This was a true hero moment. All the heroes working together to get them out of this situation. Drop them out on top of them, and they come out on top. And they survive. And they succeed. I was like, damn, this is awesome.
There's another piece in there that we shouldn't gloss over. The Hulk's losing his intellect.
Yeah.
And that's having a major effect on him. And it was something that he reveals there. That wasn't a thing that was in the forefront. Banner's revealing that wasn't driving people in this. It was, he said, I'm losing my intellect, which is, we're seeing right now, Banner's got a crisis of confidence right now because the scientist that is Banner is now gradually reverting more to a beast-like Hulk mode. And we're seeing this play out during all of this Secret Wars. Mm-hmm. So that it's something that I thought was it's a compelling character piece. This could have all been very, very surface level, and you could have had these cool battles with heroes and villains. And I referenced the last episode where this could have been like playing with toys. Where, okay, let's have the big mashup of these characters fighting. And that would have been cool. And you could have done a more compressed storyline and did that. When you do it this way and you do a 12-issue maxi series where you are building a universe and growing a universe and really showing people what's cool about these characters and why, when this is done, you want to read more of this. This was something that really set the stage for what these type of crossovers at their best are supposed to do. They're supposed to garner interest. Comics are a business. I mean, it's one of the things that sometimes, we as fans sometimes struggle with. There's a truth to that. This needs to make money. People should be, when they read something, should want to read more afterwards than what they were reading before. That's kind of the idea behind all this. So like if you're me, I was the X-Men fan. Did I want to read more after reading Secret Wars? Oh, yes, I did. And I did. And it's, even if it was only another book that I was picking up that I wasn't able to pick up before, if everybody's doing that, they have successfully expanded their readership to other titles, which is what you're doing with this. That's only done through compelling storytelling that's drawing you into characters that you're like, oh, I didn't know I wanted to read more Hulk. I didn't know I wanted to read Thor. This is on multiple characters really hitting on this piece. Tony Stark. We're learning a lot about the Iron Man suit. It's not just a suit. It's this incredible piece of technology that only has the potential to keep evolving. Reed Richards is selling you on Iron Man with this sequence. This is really, really well done storytelling for the purpose of expanding interest in a universe. That's, to me, a successful writer and our creative team doing what they're supposed to do in this moment. This is very much at its infancy. This is not common. Like we're used to nowadays, happens all the time. This did not happen all the time back then. And you could see why this thing built to now we just, if you're not getting it every year, you're at least getting it every other year, where you're getting these big epic storylines that are geared towards getting you to read more of the line, sometimes fully relaunching a line. This set the stage for all of that in a great way.
Oh, God, yeah. And one of the things I loved is the aftermath of them coming out. As you mentioned, they heard that light tapping was really Thor hitting with everything he had to try to get down to them, and you see immediately, the team rallies. And again, Captain America takes command. Sends Captain Marvel off, give us a quick, fast recon. We need to find a new base of operation. Mm-hmm. And I loved seeing her fly around, locate the different stuff, and say, no. Well, I think we got this village. I think that's going to be our best bet, And I liked seeing, again, just a couple panels of her flying around the planet in seconds. Because, again, her power level. It's kind of neat seeing them, again, letting these different characters flex their muscle.
The best bet being right under Galactus's nose.
Yeah.
Which I love that as she is doing her sweep, she doesn't immediately settle on that. I mean, she recognizes that there's innocent victims, but she keeps looking. And, after she comes back with her sweep, she sweeps back to that village again. It was on the return visit that she's like, this is the best option, but there's a tiny problem. I love that it's a teeny problem. No, it's a giant problem.
Yes.
That's right in front of you. Somebody who you don't want to notice you. The second I saw these creatures, the aliens that were there, I remembered everything about where that story was going to go. I was sitting here, I'm like, oh yeah, this changes a whole bunch. These characters are introducing an alien race into this. I like that they weren't immediately sold on helping, as a universal group. I like that our female lead in this one, the healer, had to really get to the core of what is their story and what is going on and helping heal them and giving them sanctuary there. It's something where they were ripped from their planet, because remember, this is like another planet shard that they happened to be, their planet was destroyed. They were plopped in this patchwork quilt of a planet. Now, all of a sudden, you've got all these aliens. Here's what you don't know. Did they do this to us? And I really liked how this all played out. I liked that they were wary at first, but they're also kind. It was, everything about that felt real and organic. It wasn't just, hey, buddies, come on in and hang out. It was tentative and so smartly written.
I loved Spidey's line.
Yeah.
My Spidey sense would be tingling a blue streak. They really mean to help us so far.
Yeah.
I love the fact that Spidey's thrown out there saying, hey, it's not a trap, but let's keep on our toes here.
The Thing Ben turning back into the Thing. I was ready for that to happen at this point in time. The cliffhanger, leading into that piece and then the cliffhanger was something that was incredibly interesting. Because again, we're talking more about what's going on with the Thing, and Reed's got some assumption as far as why he turned back. Can't really follow up on that because of whatever is in the sky that he's looking at. I totally forgot what that was. I felt like a dunce, like when I did get into the next issue and remembered what it was. But this was an example of a great issue, lot of content, lot of character development. I mean, talk about being a dense read. There was a ton going on here. They gave a lot of screen time to a lot of different characters and a lot of different teams and moved everybody forward, which this is why this needed to be a maxi series. Could you imagine doing this in like 6 issues? It just wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked. There's 12 issues. Is what they needed for this story.
Yeah.
And to be honest, they probably could have easily stretched this out to 15.
Sure.
Without it getting, okay, guys, time to end it. They could have very easily, with the amount of energy they're putting into this, they could have stretched this even more. But, I loved, again, each episode ending with the cliffhanger, and this one being just Richards going, oh, no, and just a look of shock and horror on his face, gets you going, what is going on? And, again, I don't remember any of the Galactus stuff, which it boggles my mind, because it's such a major part coming in. So when I read this time, I was like, oh, yeah, what is going on with Galactus? I was right along with everybody else.
Issue 5, I was looking for... This is a cover that I remember it vividly. Because X-Men reader, now all of a sudden we've got them featured on the cover. At last, the X-Men strike back. And I was actually waiting for this because they've been kind of in the background. They've had great character moments in this, but they haven't been... taking the charge, being a part of the lead team, and it was great to see where this issue went and how it gradually built. This is also an issue with Bob Layton as the penciler. So we can talk about just a little bit great penciling work. But, this is, when you're doing a 12-issue maxi series and you're on monthly schedules and things like that, this type of thing will happen. I thought he did a great job on the pencil work in this. I didn't find it jarring between the 2 issues. All of a sudden you got a different artist that's doing it, which I think shows the talent of Mike Zeck and Bob Layton.
Yeah.
In this piece, when you're able to sit there and go, oh, this feels very Secret Wars still, even though you've got a different art team.
Oh, big time. And again, like you, the X-Men Strike Back cover, brilliant cover, and jumping right into what the big hullabaloo was at the cliffhanger. Galactus summons his home. Yeah. And again, like you, I know you're both thinking the same thing I'm thinking. How could I have forgotten Galactus? He is such a major part of this story. And this right here is just like, oh, God, yeah. Oh, wow, that is awesome. And I love how all of the heroes, they're all reacting to this. How the true just scope and size, but also the power required for Galactus to get it there. This has really been a really cool showpiece on Galactus. And I loved, seeing that nowadays. Now I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
It's as big as a solar system, which is something that, that piece being referenced, that like they've got something that huge there, which is why they're so in awe of what's been brought here. But also it added to this sense of they're somewhere. Like there is a way to get to and from this place, wherever it is, but it clearly took Galactus a long time to get this here, because I'm assuming that thing travels at a pretty good click.
Yeah.
So Galactus has been working on this for quite some time, really ignoring all of them and wanting to bring this piece here for the purpose of... So he's trying to use this as a world eater, right? He wants to win by eating the world? Is that the goal here?
That's my assumption of Galactus's goal. Mm-hmm. Because he's recognizing Beyonder's got more power than him.
Yeah.
When he went up and head on, and got smacked down by the Beyonder, he's like, okay, I've got to play by these rules, so I've got to win. The way he wins is he eats the planet, destroys all life on it, and wins.
Ultimately getting rid of his hunger, because his drive...
That's his desire.
Yeah. To not have to travel around doing what he does. So that part's really interesting. I just love how this is something that's affecting all of them, including the alien here who's at first connecting with Johnny Storm. I love how this series has done a great job. We referenced it in the last episode. There's certain issues where they take a few quick moments to recap what's going on, which I think when you're dealing with a story of this scale works not only for readers who maybe missed an issue, but also or a couple issues, but also for readers who've been reading all along when you've got we're now in issue 5. So it's been months of this. Just give a quick little recap on where we're at, how we got here, and let's move right along. But we're doing it from the sense of she is using this chemical and her powers to try and get from Johnny's mind what actually happened. And I really, really liked how that all played out, that she's experiencing the whole truth from Johnny. and getting brought up to speed on who they are, who the various factions are. She knows everything now.
Yeah.
I love that.
The one thing that did make me chuckle was, afterwards, everything, she's like, Johnny, and he's like, I love you too, Zashi. And she's got to correct him. And he's like, yeah, whatever. I love this, how this version of Johnny Storm is really just, again, another little jerk.
He's young. Johnny has some growing up to do, which is something where he and Ben, I think, have the tete-a-tete. He's kind of an antagonist. He's also, Johnny is like the race car driving member of the Fantastic Four, right? He's cool and he knows it, which is two dangerous combinations over there. He's not a bad guy, but he's got he's the golden boy. He's got the looks, he's got the swagger, he's got the Fantastic Four powers. His are Ben's got Ben pulled the short straw in the fact that he's, the rock form and all those type of pieces. Johnny got the best possible powers. They look cool. They do cool things. He's able to travel, from place to place really, really quick. When he shows up on the scene, he's able to flame off and just looks like $1 million. It's all the pieces at his age that have just fallen together for him to be that guy. Yeah. And he needs to be a part of a team, because if he was solo, you'd want to punch him by the end of the book. When you have the family interplay of Reed being the major adult of all of this piece and the scientist, Johnny adds another layer to the Fantastic Four's personality. When you put all four of them together, they're a well-rounded individual. I really like that, actually, about the Fantastic Four.
Well, I remember, and I don't remember where I read this or heard it, but there was the one analogy that was given that Ben has always been the rock of the team. Not even before he became the Thing, he was still that rock-solid guy that you always could depend on.
Yes.
And Johnny was always the hothead, the flare, the flame on, kind of, just that bam, pop of the rock star kind of image that he always had, even before he got his powers. And Sue was the background person who kind of was invisible, and then just Reed being Reed, it was kind of the flexibility nature of who he was, and just that kind of, I never really remember hearing a good analogy on why Reed got the bending powers, but the three of them, I've heard that, and I don't remember where I heard it from. And someone someone threw that out there, that, that's why Ben is the Rock, because he always was. And Johnny's Flame On, because he always was that. These are who these people were before they became their powers, So I like that. And again, this is another cool sequence showing Johnny Storm being Johnny Storm.
This is also where we get to see, Colossus again holding on to Kitty. They've been apart. He's also realizing may never get home, which a lot of them are going through in this, and it's having an effect on them. And it's very interesting when you start taking a look at this place and going, we may never get out of here. We may not survive this, but even if we do, what's the guarantee we're going to get home? Very, very interesting to see them team up with Magneto, because, again, it's mutants with mutants. And when he retracts the dome and they're looking at this, they're all being awestruck and brought up to speed. But again, we're seeing more of this interpersonal dynamics. Xavier barking orders, expecting everyone, Magneto is criticizing the team, and Xavier is too, as far as their response time and what's going on with them, that they haven't had enough polish with him. The leadership of the X-Men piece really comes to the forefront here, with Storm having a reaction, Cyclops having a reaction, backing up Storm, but also in the back of his head going, I should be the guy because of my field experience and all of that. I really liked how that played out, just because of just how fully realized the X-Men were for me at this time. This is an example of Shooter playing off of Claremont's writing and bringing it into this piece. Truly, I'm hoping at least that it worked out this way, left Claremont with his team coming back. If that makes sense. I wonder how you are as a writer, how Claremont felt about them going into Secret Wars, because this has impact on his storytelling. So I'm wondering what the dynamic was at Marvel back in those days when you would try something like this. And is this something where you're liking what they're doing with your sandbox? And I'm assuming so, because it certainly played into the books very, very well, what was going on there. So I'm just take the X-Men out of it in any of these books, as far as now your editor-in-chief is handing them back, your characters back to you with some significant changes. This was a fun time at Marvel because this changed a number of books spinning out of this.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I remember I was reading West Coast Avengers, and I remember Hawkeye complaining that Rhodes was the Iron Man for their team, and Rhodes just turned back on him and said, "You didn't have a problem when I blasted a mountain that was sitting on top of us." And Hawkeye's going, "Wait, that was you?" He's like, "Yeah, that was me." I remember that moment from that West Coast Avengers issue.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's moments like that, again, this Secret Wars did affect later on. And it's, I don't know. It's, for me, again, as a kid, I didn't really see the magnitude of Secret Wars. I 100% did not see that. I saw it as just this awesome story where, the heroes were fighting, and I was 100% in on it, but I didn't, you don't have the ability to go back and analyze it, or at least I didn't when I was a kid reading this stuff. So now going back to this and looking at just how this did affect, and then again, how this X team is written so much like the X that was currently happening. This, again, is a brilliant job on creation of Secret Wars, as well as there's got to be some editor type of controlling or whatnot. I'm not sure, but I'd like to think there's, some collaboration going on, between creative teams, with Secret Wars and with especially the X books, because this reads so much like the X at that time.
Yeah, because Uncanny really, and I think it's why it struck me so much at the time how big this was. There's an issue of Uncanny where they vanish. Then there's an after effect of this. This series immediately caused change in the X title. They're not even X titles. It was Uncanny X-Men.
Yeah, there's one title.
And there was an immediate change because of this. That's something that was very, very powerful, where this story caused a change in relationships. And there was an after effect to it that stuck around afterwards. It was really, really interesting. And then reading this story, a lot more of the character development of what was going on with the inner team dynamics was happening in Secret Wars. That part, it really struck me more for the X books and Spider-Man in particular, which we'll talk more about Spider-Man next episode. Yeah. Because I think there's really a key reason to wait for that one and have some deep discussion. I wonder
what you're talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, that's something that today still, yes. There's a history of Secret Wars that has continued to grow and evolve out of it in the Spider-Man books, which let's talk deeper in that next episode. Besides the X piece, we do get to see more of this relationship. I really liked Molecule Man and Volcana together. Just the relationship between them. There was something about him where you kind of felt for like whatever rehab he was going through. I'm like, man, I wish this guy had a chance to maybe have another couple months before all this happened to him. Because then you're being dropped back in with this lot. I loved everything about this sequence because clearly a nerdy guy. He's finally got a girlfriend who's, totally gets him, and it's genuine, right? Like, it just totally feels like a genuine relationship. So, like, I'm rooting for these two kids, which they're bad guys, so I'm not supposed to be. But I loved that. This is the first time I remember myself in a book rooting for people who were supposed to be bad guys, but because they're kind of like a subset of the bad guys and kind of the picked-on version of the bad guys, you kind of root for them to do their thing. I loved how the two of them played together in this piece. The transformation of his costume, the molecules of his costume, and to the point where he couldn't breathe because of what they'd done with his costume. And that took nothing, absolutely nothing of his powers to make that happen. That piece was so great.
Dude, I'm 100% agreeing with you, and I loved the Wrecking Crew's reaction to him. Yeah, let's go. And they're like, you can hear them whistling. And they're like, hey, nice day out. Little cloudy. They're completely turning their back on their buddy because they know what's about to happen.
Yep.
That had me cracking up because, again, this is a solid crew. They work together. They're all part of the same. This is the Wrecking Crew, man. Yeah. No, we got no problem selling out our friend because we know what Molecule Man can do. They're just stepping back and hanging out and just let him do his thing. And if our friend's still alive, then we'll help him. But we're not throwing down with Molecule Man. I love this sequence for that stuff.
Titania was interesting in this one because you can see the formation of her starting to develop kind of an understanding or a friendship with the Wrecking Crew. Because she's kind of got that same mentality of let's destroy stuff. and we are tough and let's bully our way through things. She's got that same kind of attitude. And I like the beginning of the partnership with them that we start to see in this. Because that was something that just kind of naturally fit. Because to me, the Wrecking Crew had worked about them. While they let their guy take a hit there, they did rescue him afterwards. They didn't want him to die, because they're like, hey, let's another piece of muscle for our group. But they certainly weren't going to wind up in the same. They were survivors, for lack of they're glorified survivers.
This is who they are,
yeah.
And again, you 100% see it, and it makes sense, and you're cool. I'm cool with how he's written, how they're created. This so perfectly fit into who they are that I absolutely loved it.
Doom and the Enchantress.
Yeah.
It is the coolest sequence in the world because we know what she is. I mean, this is what she does, right? She mesmerizes. She gets, men and gods to, come over to her ways. She was doing a bit of this on Thor, and it was working. And Doom is starting, you could restore my face. But this is Doom. Doom is a different level of intellect. And he's recognizing, that comes with a cost. Save your tricks. I'm not paying the price for this piece. And he's basically sitting there, you have your orders, be gone. And Doom's in a very, very different sort of place where he's recognizing, like, listen, I'm going to take you down if you don't do what I'm supposed to, what I want you to. Doom's quest for power overrides everything. I just loved everything about that sequence because Enchantress is very powerful in what she does. We know that about her. Doom totally not being taken in by that, just really read strong. And that was just very well written sequence.
It's a classic Doom moment. It's one of those things where you can't really tempt Doom because if it's something he truly wanted, he would accomplish it.
Yeah.
I love when she's throwing out, I could heal your face. And he's like, it's that moment where it's like, there's that hesitation, but he's like, no, it's, for them once, for the power, save your energy for the upcoming power, for this upcoming battle. We don't need that. And I love just how, again, Doom being Doom, in these moments that, as we were just talking about how awesome the acts were being written, Doom, same thing. From jump, this is a Doom that I would suspect.
The Reed Richards Galactus moment being really foiled partially by the fact that these heroes have broken off into factions. This is an example of where Xavier and Magneto teaming up together trying to gain intel actually caused Reed may have been able to get to Galactus to a certain extent if everybody just stayed out of his way and let him do what he was doing. He was playing on the fact that he saved Galactus' life before. Maybe there's going to be an opportunity for him to talk. We'll never know how that would have gone because the mental attack on Galactus changed everything. I love that Galactus is like now ignoring Reed, but blasting at the X-Men because of what happened there. And Reed gets swatted away like a gnat because of the fact that attack at this point has annoyed Galactus, maybe at best. It's like flies or mosquitoes,
Yes.
like buzzing around you. I just really loved how that gave a sense of scale to Galactus at that point, So Reed never really got a chance to even attempt what he was really trying to do there because of that. I just thought just such a great Galactus sequence.
And I loved how much power, just a subtle glance. They just did subtle eye movement, and he brings down devastating on Magneto's base, knocks Reed down, and then launches one of his minions to deal with the pesky little gnats at his feet.
Yep.
I love that.
And the minion looks pretty impressive.
Oh God, yeah. Again, this is a minion of Galactus, so there are major power levels going on here.
Yeah, and I really liked that piece because the minion comes down right away and is punching out the Hulk.
Yeah.
So I mean that gives you a real sense of power and scale and what's going on. Because we've got some heavy hitters there, and really the most powerful hitter out of the batch, you would argue, is the Hulk. You've got Thor and the Thing, and they're very, very strong, very, very powerful. But I think, power level wise, the Hulk just being taken down almost instantly, I thought was something that really stood out. I liked the teamwork of all of this in taking down this creature, because we're seeing now this hero group is starting to develop some form of, because it's not just the Avengers, the Fantastic Four. It was really great to see, Ben using like a wrestling move to, allow the Human Torch to interact, Captain America's shield being a part of it. It was multiple members of the team were working together to make that action happen. But this has now weakened them for the next phase of the attack from the villains. The villains, I'm going to say right now, if I'm scoring this like a boxing match, the villains are winning a lot of rounds.
Yes.
Because they're like recognizing, okay, Galactus just did all this stuff. What a great time for us to come in and attack. Like, there's no honor in this. It's like, hey, this is our chance to really, this is, the same group that dropped a mountain on them. Is like, let's get them now. I thought this was so great in how it was handled, because it was on paper, they were doing the right thing at the right time. There was just a factor that they didn't count on in this process. And Doom was using all of this for his advantage. Doom is like, wait, if his guys die, which is what he was thinking was going to happen, it doesn't matter as long as I get where I need to go right now.
Yep.
I love Doom's strategy in this. If they had any idea that, like, every time he sends us out on a mission, he may be sending us out to die. I don't know. There's no loyalty in this, but at what point in time do you start questioning Doom's orders? And can you with the Ultron robot? This was so brilliantly handled. I absolutely loved everything about this, because there's so many layers to what's going on here. It's a brilliant strategy, but it's all a distraction for Doom to be able to do. He's hoping Galactus is paying attention to this and not him.
Right.
For a split second. That's all he wants, is the split second where Galactus isn't paying attention to him.
And where Galactus's attention is drawn away from whatever project he's working on. Because if Galactus is focused over here, then he can do his thing. I love just, Doom's, again, Doom is Doom here. This is absolutely perfect. And earlier, there was like, Doc Ock had that line where he's like, I'm following Doom, but got to keep an eye on him, because they know, Doc Ock knows that, Doom's got his own plans. The Wrecking Crew even saw that there's going to come a time when Doom is going to, double cross us, and we're after the pick between Doom and our own survival. So they're going into these fights kind of knowing it, but right now it looks and makes sense to them. This is brilliant usage of his team, where he's like, okay, the heroes are down. Attack now. Oh, yeah, that's a good call, Doom. Not knowing Doom has his own side plan, and also not knowing that the X-Men are coming in. And I thought that, for me, was a great moment of, the villains hit, they soften them up. Cap's getting the team, ready, trying to get everybody, get the team focused for the second wave, and in come the X-Men. And that, for me, was just a really cool hoorah moment.
Yeah, it was a great use of the X-Men here, because they're rested, they're ready to go, and they're more solidly focused as a team in how they're coming in to rally on this particular sequence. So at this time, they become this B squad that comes in and strikes. Really, it's, from a strategy standpoint, this is something that's working out really well because the villains didn't see this coming. This is now another front coming at them. They're almost surrounded at this point. Doom's the one that it really pays off for, because this, like, it wasn't what he intended, but totally pays off. I've got a question, and it's something I remember having a question about as a kid. So Colossus armors up, right? And you always see the steel, kind of surrounding his whole body. When he depowers, the blue on his pants that's there, where does that go? Like, I don't understand how this whole outfit works. I never did. Because shouldn't it be like there's none of the blue part on his legs? Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that should be flesh.
Where does that go?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'll be honest with you. You know what? I have been an X-reader for so many years, and I just noticed that now.
I don't know. Like, it's the puzzling part of how his whole outfit works for me. I love Colossus. Big fan of Colossus. It's something I remember as a kid. Like, it was always my question. Like, where does the blue go? Like, what happens to it? Like, it just
I've never noticed that.
It does poof.
That is awesome. I never noticed that.
Yeah.
And again, I loved this fight sequence. And again, a great further developing what's going on with Colossus and where his story is going to go with the Wrecking Crew, messing him up, and the Enchantress teleporting the bad guys out. The X's take off because the professor calls them, tells them to fall back, and they leave Colossus behind.
Yeah. And
I love why Magneto, and Charles said to do that. Magneto's like, he's injured. We can't use him. Charles is like, no, there's a healer in that village. He'll be fine. But I do love the fact that this, again, is further problems that the team has. Further, because all the other X-Men are like, hey, we don't leave one of our own behind. We shouldn't have left him behind. And I love the further turmoil going on in the X team.
And let's be clear. This is an era with Wolverine, right? Where Wolverine is that edgy kind of piece. But Wolverine speaking up on behalf of the X-Men don't leave one of their own behind. Mm-hmm. So think about how like erratic Wolverine can be about, wanting to get into the fight, everything to antagonize fighting and things like that. This is a sharp contrast to some of the other moments you see with Wolverine. And this is what made him so cool. It was the fact that he really likes this team. He cares. In this moment, he's passionate about this. Like, he does not like the fact that they've left Colossus behind. So in spite of all his antagonism that he does this. Mm-hmm. And he's the one speaking up out of the whole team. He's the one putting his foot down there. This is where Wolverine was written really well in this era, because that contrast is why people grew to love him. It was like, oh, for all that nonsense that he does and all that, he really does care about this when the chips are down. And it's a moral decision. You're looking at that. He will always stand by the team. He will make the call that we got to take care of our own. We got to take care of our people. We got to stand up for them. He'll go in alone if he has to back up one of his people, no matter what the risk is to himself. That's Wolverine. I loved everything about the writing of this because Magneto was so Magneto. Charles was so Charles. It actually was the right call, as far as leaving Colossus with the healer, I think, as you look at it. But I get where Wolverine doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And he's speaking up against it. And I'm actually all team Wolverine in his reaction to this thing. Even, it's kind of like, no, the X-Men do take care of their own. So I like that. I felt as uncomfortable about it because at this age, and I still am, I was all X-Men on this one. I was like, yes, because they were family. And there was something, the one advantage the Uncanny X-Men had at this time with being its own book was it was very tight. The family feel of it was very tight. The character development was very tight. They weren't perfect. They had fights. They had arguments. But these are also the same people that would also go out and have a baseball game together, and that type of stuff was at that school was stuff that mattered and connected these people together. So I loved that this read like an issue of X-Men when they were having their sequences. That's just really, really solid, consistent writing. Leading to this moment where now we've got one of our own in with the hero team over here. Because that was where I was at. I'm like, okay, my guy's over here now. What does this mean? And what's going on with the healer? And you see her reaction to him. Like, he doesn't want any part of that at first. Which is really interesting, showing where Colossus is at this stage. Until she heals him. And then the game starts to change for him. This is a pivotal Colossus sequence. His being left here is a game changer that will play exponentially into the X books for quite some time after this.
Yes. And I love the usage of this, take the time to let this happen. Knowing what the future is going to play out, let's do this. And it's one of those things I always wonder how much of, was this planned ahead of time? Because there's some cool Colossus stories that happens after this because of this one sequence, because of these sequences, because of his interaction with the healer. I wonder how much of it was planned ahead of time.
Yeah. That part was really, really good. The way this issue wraps up was really, really cool. Seeing Doom on Galactus's ship, getting the sense of scale. Doom having trouble fully comprehending the concepts that are surrounding him was something I thought was just really great. It added this sense of, because this is the size of a solar system. So Doom is trying to get towards some form of equipment, some form of, because he knows what he's looking for here. He's looking for something that's going to put him in a position where he can start turning the Beyonders' power to his advantage. This is, we're not at the halfway point yet of this series. This Galactus moment is pivotal, which is why I'm like, why on earth did I not remember that this was a thing? Because this is where things start to shift. It actually, it's a phase, it's an important chapter, an important phase of this story is this piece as we're wrapping up that and heading into issue 6. This is an incredibly pivotal issue because it's starting to set a stage for something really, really big.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. And again, jumping into issue 6, you're looking at the cover.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the villains. And I think that, for me, I'm trying to remember, this is like really the first time the villains were the central focus of the cover.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fitting because the villains are winning all the fights.
Well, it's also nice to have this mirror image or, like a replica piece of the original first cover.
Yeah.
Because the first cover, had all of our heroes. So now we've got this really cool one of all the villains with Doom front and center. The heroes really are in kind of survival mode in this piece because the villains are constantly taking offensive in that piece. And I really do like that about this piece. We're back to this issue, issue 6 with Mike Zeck being the penciler off of that. And I got to say again, kudos to both art teams involved in this because this is seamless. Reading this, back in the day, they weren't planning for a trade. They were planning for this to be a monthly series going through. Reading this in a collected edition and going through and reading them like this, boy, it's hard to do that without it feeling like, there's some changing style of art. It speaks to the talent of both art teams in being able to deliver just a real quality piece and keeping it together thematically. This has got to be hard to do. As far as this is Secret Wars, Battle World's got to feel the same. The ships, the atmosphere, the environment, the characters, they've got to feel the same, even though, your artists are going to have their own artistic sensibilities. And I really felt like this seamlessly flowed between the two issues. And it really is a testament to, I didn't realize until we were starting to do this that there were actually 2 art teams that had worked on certain issues of this piece. And I think it's something that's worth noting, the fact that they did a bang-up job on this. It's a very good-looking book all the way through. And boy, I don't know if you noticed anything, but I certainly didn't between the issues, other than the fact that just high-quality art in throughout this entire thing.
Oh God, no. This again, 100%. The creative team did a brilliant job of, there was nothing jarring. There were no characters. Were no interaction. None of the, the visual looks and appearances of any of the people, surroundings, and whatnot. It blended seamlessly with multiple teams doing different stuff, and I think that's something that really, again, impresses me on the art at the time, the team at the time. Because again, every artist has their own little flair to it and their own little groove, but whether they selected the right people to do it, or whether it was just the each of the art teams working together, or saying, okay, this is how you do it, I'm going to do it that way as well, or I don't know the whole side story behind that. That's something, again, questions I'd love to ask people, or talk to editing teams or something like that, how you go about making something so seamless. Because we've read issues where there was a change in art team and there was a dramatic change and
Sure.
You noticed it. This is one of those ones where and again, as a kid, I never looked at art teams. I didn't look at creative teams. I just read the book. I didn't think about who is doing the work. And I know there was never a thought in my head about, oh, this looks different. Because sometimes I remember as a kid having times when art looked different, like, oh, why are they doing it that way now? Oh, okay, and not realizing it was a different person, just it was this, the way the book was being created now this way. With this one, I know nothing, it always felt, flowed through. It flowed through.
John Romita Jr. took over at Uncanny X-Men at one point in time. I remember not liking it at first. And it's no insult. John Romita Jr. is a great artist, so please, if you're a listener, a big fan of John Romita Jr., I am too. But when you're younger and you're used to the X-Men having a certain look, then all of a sudden John Romita Jr. comes on and it's a different look. It's a different flavor, a different storytelling. Like anything new, you got to get used to the change. So I noticed right away. I'm like, what is this? What's going on? I grew to love it. It's like, as you're going through, those were just beautiful, beautiful issues. But it's a very different style if you take a look at what came before it to that particular piece. John Romita Jr.'s got a very definitive style. It's something it's unique when you come over there, and it's a unique flavor. And those pieces are things that I noticed. This is not that kind of change, and that speaks to me to editorial, I would think, as far as pulling together complementary artists. They're not the same. Bob Layton's an amazing talent. Mike Zeck's an amazing talent. They're not the same artist, but there's a similar sensibility, a similar end product that you get with them, that you want to make sure that you're having artists that are at least complementary of each other, so it is not this jarring experience. And I think this was really good choices. This wasp sequence that we see here, what I really loved about this is, and I don't remember cluing in onto this at the time, but I really did now, this patchwork world that was put together is put together in a place where it was not intended to be. So atmosphere, what kind of sun it's pulling from. I love that as Wasp is going on this journey, we're getting this smart reminder that, like, okay, I thought going into the forest would cool things off a little bit. It's even muggier over there. And she's having trouble flying because of it. She's like, how can I flap my wings in such mugginess? And she's dealing with the, alien bugs and things like that are there. So the mugginess is starting to weigh her down, as we all know it does. I mean, we live in Ohio. We have some muggy summers, right? And when that muggy weather hits, you get tired quicker. Everything feels sticky. It is. People listen to this that are in Florida. Florida has some very muggy summers. I remember going to visit my uncle in July in Florida. It was I say my uncle, it was my godfather, Terry Mullaney. He lived in Florida. All of my dad's closest friends were like uncles. He was Uncle Terry and that type of thing. I wasn't really my uncle as far as that respect goes, but man, sure treated me like that. We go down to his place in July. July in Florida, in the heat, the peak time of summer. We were like indoors in air conditioning during the day and going out at night. I'm talking about, I want to say, this is like high school, era where they're like,
yeah.
And I was so connecting with what Janet was going through as she's circling through this planet here and kind of seeing that piece, and then has this great encounter with Lizard. I forgot Lizard in this. I mean, I knew he was in it, but I mean, he hasn't been really played out in this. I like that they use this sequence to say, well, kind of by design, Lizard would kind of go off and find his own space and do his own thing. And the interactions between her and Lizard were really, really cool in this. I actually really liked this little side story with the two of them and what happened.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And one of the things I dig about this was showing, again, Wasp is a cool character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I really don't remember reading much of the sequences back when this first came out as a kid, just because, again, I've said on multiple times, I was an idiot when it came to female heroes. I ignored them a lot, you know, and I know as a kid, I skipped over this sequence up until the moment that Lizard showed up. But, you know, looking at it now, I love the one comment she has about how, you know, she wishes if she was Eagle Woman instead of the Wasp, she'd be better suited for long distance travel. And that's something, again, with the Wasp, where it, you know, when you shrink down to Wasp size, that makes traveling long distances even harder. And I like that notion that she had that going on for her, where she had that issue. And I thought that was a cool element to bring into the mix.
I agree. It was something that worked really well. I do remember Claw being in this because Claw, I remember, is a villain in many different stories. Claw, you know, kind of enacting, and especially that he was made of sound. And those pieces, when he was brought into this piece, I liked the explanation as to why. Yeah. You know, he had been previously just almost like dissipated by Dazzler, and Doom's like reconstituting him when he happened to be on Galactus's ship. It just works to his advantage. He didn't. I love that Doom didn't plan on getting Claw. This was just a random discovery as he's fiddling around with the inner workings of Galactus's ship. But it added Claw back into this storyline in a way that I thought was really, really cool. I like that there's other heroes and other villains that are all of a sudden showing up in this storyline. And we're going to see more of this as the issues go on. But, Claw was kind of just a neat little addition. And, again, adding another layer to the chaos.
Oh, God, yeah. And, again, it's Doom just seeing one piece. You know, initially he's dismissing him. He goes, wait, I can use this. Okay. Yeah. And again, that's the coolness of Doom. Yeah. Where, again, you always talk about, you know, his mental intelligence versus Reed Richards, who is actually smarter between the two of them. You know, and are they on the same level? Are they, you know, it's one of those things where I don't think I've ever heard a really solid argument as to who is smarter, Doom or Richards. You know, and I think that'd be one of those debates that could go on for all time and never end. You know, people could pull out the facts on each one. But one of the things about Doom that
can I answer that question for you?
Yeah.
It's Reed. Doom knows that Reed's smarter than him, and it gets to him, which is why he has to constantly remind people that he's smarter than Reed Richards. Somebody who's truly smarter than somebody else doesn't need to do that. It's Reed.
Okay, so much for my lengthy argument idea.
you just don't need to. Reed's confident. Reed is smart. Reed just does his thing. He doesn't need to prove himself to anybody. He's not doing it. Doom does. Doom needs to prove he's smarter than Reed. That automatically means that deep down in Doom's gut, Doom knows he's not.
But okay, now the other side is
okay.
The other side of the argument is everybody has that weakness. Every character has that great weakness. We always talk about Lex Luthor's.
Show me one issue where Reed Richards is questioning his intelligence to anybody.
I haven't read enough of the Fantastic Four to give it to you, but I know it's out there.
It isn't.
I know it is. So
not with Doom. Wait. Not with Doom.
Fantastic Four.
Not with Doom.
I think one of the, Doom's weakness that he has is the fact that he has to prove to people. He can't just sit back and say, I am the smartest. I don't need to prove it to you. It's like Luthor's weakness of where he can't admit that, Superman is actually a benefit of good. He has to prove to everybody that Superman is not good that Luthor is good. And that's the weakness that Luthor has. The one weakness that Doom has is he has to convince other people. He can't just accept the fact that, yes, he is Doom. He's got to get everybody else to say, yes, you are Doom.
And this is why Reed surpasses him, because Reed doesn't waste his time with that. I think if they were neck and neck, Doom was not so caught up in that nonsense, Doom would either be equal or smarter than Reed, because he's not wasting his time doing all of that. Reed is just constantly working to advance himself. I think smart people know. I'm not saying Reed's perfect. I want to be very, very clear off of that piece. Reed is constantly growing and advancing, whereas Doom is, but his pace is slowed down by his ego.
Yes.
His need for all of that gets in the way of Reed's more collaborative than Doom. Reed is more willing to entertain and learn from everybody than Doom. Whereas Doom needs to put people down and dismiss people. Even the Claw piece, it took him a little bit to get there. Like, he was ready to dismiss, like, this is unnecessary. Then at the last minute, he does get there and goes, oh, I can use you and make that piece. But it's always under the guise of, if you serve me well in all of those pieces, it's got to be, the bow down before Doom. He's not collaborative with anybody and will destroy a potential source of intellect for him or advancement for himself if they won't do that. Kang. Wait, Kang is a great example. Kang's from the future. You don't think Doom could have learned some stuff from Kang? Now, yeah. I think that was very Dr. Doom, and I think in defense of Doom, I don't know, somebody tries to blow me up, I'm probably going to have an issue with them after the fact. So I'm not anti what Doom did in that sequence. I kind of, I'm not for like killing or blowing people up or vaporizing them. But in a debate, I would say, do you think Doom was wrong in what he did? I kind of get, it's not what I would have done, but I get why he did.
And again, do I think he was wrong? I don't know. Mm-hmm. If you look at life from the villain side, no. If you look at life from the hero side, yes.
Yeah.
If you look at life from, the reader side, I get what you get your answer where you're like, I get why he did it. I wouldn't have done it that way because we're more on the hero side.
Sure.
So we'll look at life more from that way. But again, it's one of those things where I loved how his usage of this. And again, throughout this whole thing, he's in Galactus's home for one purpose only, to get knowledge on how to further Doom. This has nothing to do with the contest with the Beyonder. It has nothing to do with the other villains. This has only about Doom. Doom wants to figure out a way that he can, circumvent the rules. He wants to, put his own little swerve, his own little cheat code in there. And I love the fact that he's recognizing that the second Galactus realizes he's there, he's in trouble.
Yep.
Right now, Galactus does not pay attention to him. But the moment Galactus knows, he knows Galactus has enough power to just swat him like a fly. I think that for me is another cool Doom moment in this.
Yeah, it's a classic sort of piece. His use of Claw was great because Claw's motivation here is, I don't want to feel like I want to be the fly in Galactus's suit because of what happened to him. So he's willing to do that piece. But he is not swayed in the slightest by what is going on with Doom and, I've got to follow Doom. He's willing to deliver the message because of the fact that it will thwart Galactus on some level. Doom's brilliance is recognizing none of these villains are going to believe Claw when he shows up unless he has Ultron guide the ship.
Yes.
And I loved that the coded message was meant to have Ultron say, he knows the code. I enforce Doom's will. He uttered the code words. The orders are genuine. They will be obeyed. And the Volcana Titania debate there ended very quickly. But I like how she's sitting there saying, hey, remember what he did with Kang?
Yep.
I'm not going to be Kang soup right now. Doom says we're doing this. We're doing this. That's that. Done. Such a great sequence. And
it was neat seeing that sequence. When Claw first shows up on the scene, I love seeing, again, Molecule Man is back to that more cowardly, timid kind of guy. He's actually hiding behind his girlfriend, in those moments. And she's sitting there comforting him, and keeping him safe. I loved just that little subtle bit there. Because, again, this guy is unbelievable power levels, but it's all based on his confidence, all based on the mind games that Doom has played. And Doom's played such a solid game at keeping them online. They're all in. Again, it's even the people who would think about who could possibly go against Doom are in line.
Yeah. The Wasp and Lizard sequence, where she starts to kind of make friends with him, was something that really, he got hurt, and she's recognizing that, like, hey, I'll help you out a little bit. The kindness piece, it reminds me of some of what I enjoy in some of the Killer Croc stories. Where there's sometimes people that will tap into his humanity, and you kind of get to see that piece of him. I've always loved the Lizard, Kurt Connors, and, the Doctor, and the fact that, he's this man that was experimenting, trying to find a way to take care of his arm that he lost. And I always loved the motivation behind trying to, obviously take care of himself, but also advance medical science for the benefit of all. And it leading to this unfortunate accident that is constantly a curse that he's facing. I really, really like when we have these moments that connect with the fact that there's a guy in there somewhere, and that part of what she's tapping into, she doesn't really realize it, that she's tapping into the humanity that's there. And I really liked how that whole sequence played out, because it just felt very real. And I love, as a lifetime Spidey fan, always loved the Lizard stories and love seeing him here. And this is where these mashups, which is what this was at the time, were so cool. Yeah. Because this is not an interaction that I would have said was on my bucket list of seeing the Wasp interact with the Lizard. But it was so good to see the two of them together and the way it played out. Very well written.
Oh, big time, yeah. I completely agree with you. And I think, again, we go from that really nice kind of moment to more of the X's, and the mutants are going to fix their ship because, Galactus kind of smacked him a smackdown on a slight glance, And I loved seeing, again, Charles diving into it. And again, we're looking at Xavier alone, and he's recognizing that his legs aren't as strong. But he can't give the appearance of weakness, because he's recognizing that I've got to put a strong front on or my team won't follow me. And again, if he was a true team leader, if he was a true general, that wouldn't have mattered. If either Storm or Cyclops were in a chair calling out orders, that team would follow them because they're a proven team general. And it's not about barking out orders. It's about being part of the team and throwing out the direction. Xavier's not used to being that kind of leader. He's always been the teacher, the mentor, that kind of side of it, where, you say they do. When you're in the field, when you're fighting alongside them, it's not, I say you do, it's we take care of this. I like seeing these little moments of weakness, and I did air quotes around weakness, of Xavier, in that he's not completely comfortable with who he is. And you can kind of see that. And he's trying to figure out his role and his place. And he is still a jerk. And he's being a jerk to his team. But I loved when he starts reaching out. And he reaches out and he goes into the wrong mind. He goes into Enchantress's mind. And she's like, oh, no, little man, I am not letting that happen. Turns off the switch and blocks his power. I thought that, for me, was a really cool moment of, again, Xavier has this ultimate, this super huge power of entering people's minds. Well, guess what? She blocked it. And I love that.
Yeah, that was something that really was cool. The X-Men and seeing the aftermath of the blast, because I just realized, I'm like, we haven't really, they got blasted, and how did they survive? And it was Magneto's bubble. These bases are not long for this world. The heroes are not doing well with their bases.
No, they're not. They need to step up their game. And again, the X's are doing that, but again, it's Xavier getting an idea of something going on with the volcanic plan that Doom has. So he's like, we need to recon. And it's funny, I love the team that he sent, because he really did send some of his killers, into the mix, but he didn't include Storm. And I'll be honest with you, I disagree with that call. I would have sent the 4 of them.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I think this is an example of Xavier maybe not understanding how to run a field team. It's so funny. He was so much better when he was like the man in the chair.
Yeah.
Which kind of a Spider-Man movie, recent Spider-Man movie reference. Him being the guy in the chair. But I think he was a really good guy in the chair back in the day. This is something that thematically is going to continue on with the X-Men as far as his way of handling things. I did like the bit where the Enchantress caught on to what he was doing. Xavier was able to get the information that he needed, but her sitting there recognizing it and using magic against him. I liked seeing that there were, when you're dealing with a god, the god is going to have a different way of handling things in that sequence. Nobody being like omnipotently powerful in this really works well, because when there's a shift later on in the story, it's really kind of good to have seen that right now there's been kind of a foil for everybody along the way, and I like that part.
Mm-hmm. Now, the confrontation between Storm and Xavier, once again, brilliant writing. I absolutely loved it. And one of the things, again, that as a kid, I never noticed how much of a jerk Xavier is being. But, here you obviously can clearly see, because he makes the threat that if you don't follow my orders, I'll make you follow my orders. And I love the fact that now I'm looking at going, that is awesome. That is absolutely, that's borderline villain, styling, where, we saw him blast Spidey, to make him forget.
Yeah.
He's threatening to do it now to one of his X-Men, to one of his people. I'm going to change your mind. I'm going to change your will against it. That's something that Xavier should never want to do. And right. I love the fact that he's throwing that out as a threat to Storm to keep her in line. That was something that I know I missed as a kid. But now as an adult, I'm like, oh, that is such a brilliant usage to put to throw that out there as a driving factor in this team.
I'm 1,000% Team Storm.
Yes, me too.
And I even more so, to your point, more so now than I was as a kid when I read this, because like you, I did not catch the magnitude of what Xavier was saying there the way that I do now. Yeah. And I'm like, oh boy, that's something where he has crossed a line that, quite frankly, after this, I don't know that I'd want to be an X-Men.
It's funny, like with me, reading this now, thinking, what if I was sitting in Storm's shoes, what would you say to Xavier in that? Now she's just like, I see, and walks away, she's just, and she does throw a nice little jab at him that you're willing to, beat your own troops into submission to ensure that you have the honor of leading them into catastrophe. I love that she throws that little barb, but the other jab that, she could have thrown at him was, so you're going to erase my mind? So every single time you look at me, you will remember that the only way you could control me is by erasing my mind. That right there, that would dig into Charles.
Oh, yeah.
Because the only way he could control his people is by forcing them to do what he wants.
Yeah. This is something that thematically gets explored with Xavier for years. Because there's been ups and downs and roller coasters of who Xavier is. And, we could do a whole episode on Charles Xavier at some point in time. Maybe we should do Onslaught. Did you ever read Onslaught?
I don't think I did.
Oh,
I've heard of it.
Yeah, we may need to touch on that at some point,
but I don't think I actually read it.
Yeah, that's that's going to be a big one when we go to, if we do that at some point in time. Just because there's a story that leads up to it, and we should do that too. There's a lot to that. That'll be a epic. I think we'll sneak that in at some point in time. There's so many stories to do.
I know. There's a lot we got to talk about.
Yeah. But I really, really liked this sequence. Now we're starting to see, too, when we ship back to Colossus and their refuge there. Boy, I got to tell you something. I would not want Peter to date my daughter. Okay, I get kind of like, being, having some sort of feelings for the healer. But, like, for him, they're saying, like, okay, this girl that I have been in love with and I'm planning my whole entire future with, you know what? This girl made me feel better. Now I'm in love. It's a sign that I actually think the writing's brilliant. It's also a sign that where Peter and Kitty are at this point in time, Peter is not ready for that relationship. I love that I feel that way about it. It's not a criticism of the story or the writing. I actually love that I'm sitting here right now and going, yeah, these two kids should not continue on right now. Peter's got some growing to do, and he's got to figure out who the heck he is and what he really wants out of life. And I like that reading this story now, I'm like, that's normal too, right? These characters shouldn't all be the same, and it shouldn't all play out like Scott and Jean are probably a bad example too. Yeah. There's very, very few in comics good examples. Superman and Lois, I guess, right?
Superman and Lois. Peter and MJ.
Well, how is that a good example? It was.
Yeah.
But I
really, Gwen Stacy was awesome until it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, yeah, really. But I do understand she's a very beautiful girl. There's something there. It's a sign, though, that Peter hasn't quite figured himself out yet. I love his obsession, though. Like, the Torch has clearly got a relationship going with this girl already. And Peter's like sitting here like, what's he doing? Well, I don't know. I think it's pretty obvious what he's doing. He's taking her up into the sky and wooing her. I can fill that blank in for you, Peter. You just don't like it.
And here's something that, and again, as a kid, I remember thinking this, and I still to this day question it. Is her healing powers doing something to them?
Maybe.
Because I remember as a kid, thinking this village was going to turn out to be villains or turn out to, do something to the heroes. Right now they look like they're helping. In reality, they're planning to attack them or something. I remember thinking that, and I remember thinking she was going to be part of that, where it's her healing power is somehow taking over the mind.
Well, look what she did with Johnny, though, as far as connecting with him, where it was a two-way interchange. You know what I mean? He knew her name because of it. She knew what was going on with him because of it. It was innocent, but is her power emotional, empathy driven as well? Where it's causing a relate. Like Spider-Man was very, happy after he healed her. Johnny was. Those type of pieces. It creates, maybe the more hurt you are, the more of an effect that it has, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a layer of that. I don't think she's evil in any way, shape, or form. I think there's a strong empathy with her, though, that I think if you're a person that is having that direct connection to that empathy and an emotional feeling can't help but rub off on you.
Yeah, now let me clarify. I know she's not evil, and the village isn't evil or any of that stuff. I remember as a kid thinking that, and I do wonder if what you said about the level of healing is what maybe pulls in. So on your side about with Peter, part of me thinks it's not his fault completely.
Yeah.
But it could be, as you're saying, a sign of you're not ready for that level of commitment there, buddy. There is, you do have some growing to do, because Peter is also young. He looks like a mountain because he's a big guy, but he's still a kid as well.
Sure.
So it's one of those things where you have the young love. Peter, even though he looks like an adult, is really high school age. It's just because he's a big guy that he looks older than what he actually is. And I think that's part of the interesting side of Peter, and his path right now.
The comics address all this, too. I mean, everything we're talking about right here, this is actually where their relationship goes, Peter and Kitty, and there's a lot of ups and downs and roller coasters. There's been times at the altar and various pieces that have happened with these two over the years. So it's been a very, very up and down relationship between the two of them because of a lot of what we're talking about here. And I actually really, really like that. It's been a journey for both. Very curious to see, it's still not resolved fully. Mm-hmm. The sequence here where we start seeing this team, trying to plan out the next phase, and Captain America really being smart I think Cap's recognizing their problem. They do certain things, they get hit. They do certain things and, they're extended, and then there's this other phase where they get hit. Cap is trying to make a strong strategy so that way they're making targeted approaches at things. And I love what he's doing right now in what he's handling. Because he's sitting here, but if we waste our strength rashly, we may not have enough of it left when it really counts. Every defeat that they've had, every narrow escape that they've had, has been due to exactly what Cap is saying. So the Hulk is emotional and really getting there. We're seeing more of this de-evolving that Bruce Banner is afraid of in this sequence. But I love how that plays out with Cap being the perfect leader right now, because he's not afraid to take a look at gathering facts and making a smart decision based on the facts that are in front of them. I really, really enjoyed that sequence because I thought it was very, very smart. Said a lot about Captain America and why he is the right leader for this team.
Oh, big time. Yeah. And again, I love how you look at this. You've got Cap there, you've got Reed there as counsel.
Yeah.
And of course, if Reed's there, that means Thing's there. And Thor's there to back Cap on. We've seen Thor's like, I've got your back, Cap. You say we do, and I loved how seeing those four had to be together. She-Hulk coming in because of Wasp. Cap saying, hey, Colossus already told us she got away from Magneto. She's gonna be okay. We've got Captain Marvel searching for her right now. We're okay there. And it's that great hero dynamic of problems that is happening within them. But Cap taking command. Cap needs to be the leader of that group. And again, I love seeing Iron Man kind of put the moves on Captain Marvel or talking to her or just trying to figure out his role in this. I love just that little dialogue, especially considering it is Rhodes in the armor. It's not Tony in the armor. And I don't think, and nobody knows that it's not Tony Stark in the armor.
Right.
And I love the fact that's what, is going on, because that's who Iron Man was at the time that this is happening. And even the way he's portraying himself, the way he's written and how he's handling it, it's 100%, we know it's Rhodes. And I was kind of neat seeing him kind of his flirtation, commentary, whatnot that he's doing with Captain Marvel. And even he's like, this is not working, and he just focuses on the task at hand. I love seeing the team then take a couple issues to just, continue to flesh out the heroes, trying to, get their groove going.
Rhodey as Iron Man was a very interesting bit, especially filling in for Tony when things were going wrong in his life. He became a very interesting character. I really loved Rhodey as Iron Man. Did you read any of Rhodey as Iron Man back in the day?
Back in the day, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew what was going on, and I don't remember how I even knew what was going on, but I remember hearing stories about everything that, Tony was going through, and then Rhodey as Iron Man, and then, as I said earlier, when the West Coast Avengers, I read West Coast Avengers, so I read him as Iron Man there, and that's really where I've got my experience as Rhodey as Iron Man, or in an iron suit.
Are you talking about the original West Coast Avengers?
Yeah.
That was Tony.
Okay, I don't know which I don't know if I read the original West Coast, but there was a version of the West Coast Avengers.
You're talking with the red and silver suit?
It was Rhodey. It was, Tony Rhodes was in an iron suit, and he wasn't calling himself Iron Man. I think he was calling himself War Machine at the time. But it was him, Hawkeye, Mockingbird, I think.
Okay, because the original West Coast Avengers team was Wonder Man, Tigra, Hawkeye, Mockingbird, and Tony. Tony was wearing a red and silver Iron Man suit. I'm not saying. I mean, no, it depends on. I don't know that. I don't know that didn't change along the way.
Well, I know I didn't read that version. The West Coast Avengers version I read came out probably in.
Or maybe it was the miniseries. No, you might be talking about the miniseries. There was a 4-issue.
Maybe I was talking that. Yeah.
There was a 4-issue miniseries, and who was the Iron Man in the 4-issue miniseries? Maybe I'm wrong on this. Because there was a 4-issue miniseries that led into a main series, and I don't remember who was the Iron Man in the. I read both. I don't remember if it was a different Iron Man. West Coast Avengers was cool. Yeah. So I'm just looking back right now to see. Let's see here. He recruits Mockingbird, Wonder Man, Tiger, and Iron Man. Okay, no, you're right. I think it was Jim Rhodes initially, and then I thought Tony became the Iron Man. Iron Man rejoins. Yeah, I'm not gonna go. I'm kind of weird to go through the whole series of it right now. I don't want to go through the whole piece off of there. You may be right off of that piece. The West Coast. I loved West Coast Avengers. It was a really good series. Roger Stern and Bob Hall. Actually, if anybody has the app, it's well worth reading. Forgetting the Iron Man piece. We may be both right on this one at various points in time, but I think maybe you're right that initially it was Rhodey. And I don't know, because there was a mini series and then a series, an ongoing series. And I was so glad that West Coast Avengers got an ongoing series, because I was always... I weaved in and out of Avengers. West Coast, I read a good run of it originally. And I think you might be right with the... It's been years since I've read it, because we're going back to the 80s. So you might be 1,000% right. So I need to correct myself and just say you might be the one that's right on this one as far as Jim Rhodes. But the Iron Man piece was one of those where they did weave in and out. I don't remember when War Machine as a character actually started.
Yes, I don't remember that. And again, the only reason I remember it, him in the armor, and I remember it was on West Coast because I clearly remember the sequence between when Rhodes takes off the armor and you see it's not Tony. Hawkeye's got an issue with it, saying, "What the heck? This whole time we've had the B team working with us," and he's like, "Hey, you weren't complaining when I blew up that mountain that was sitting on top of us." Like, that was you? Yeah, that was me. And I remember that sequence vividly because, Rhodes was on the team as Iron Man. And it was West Coast Avengers. And, they had, it may have been like second or third issue in when he finally takes off the helmet. And you see that it's him, not Tony. And that was really my only exposure to Tony, to Rhodes as Iron Man, except for Secret Wars. And even in Secret Wars, they didn't keep it hidden. He doesn't come out and flat out say, "Hey, I'm not Tony Stark." And it's obviously when later on, when there's ramifications from Secret Wars that play out in the actual real world. So for me, again, I'm throwing out that, but I don't have the full knowledge on when he changed over. And I do remember in a comic book shop them talking about War Machine and how he became War Machine. He wasn't calling himself Iron Man anymore. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I remember thinking, oh, that's neat. We got Iron Man and War Machine. All right, cool. And then in the movie universe, they changed it from War Machine to Iron Patriot. Because hey, we gotta keep it more PC. We don't want to have war, but he's a patriot. So I was like, okay, that's kind of neat how they did that in the movie. And I don't know if they ever brought that into the comic book universe, but I like it. So again, I like those little usage of Rhodey as Iron Man. I like his variation on it, so it's kind of neat.
So you are 1,000% right. I just wanted to verify it for myself. In the West Coast Avengers 4-issue miniseries, the kickoff of the West Coast Avengers, that was Rhodey. The ongoing series that took place in 85 was Tony.
Oh, cool.
So that's where the change happened. I don't know why the change happened or what led to that. I remember when Tony came back, Tony had a red and silver armor. And it was a different sort of armor. I read Iron Man during that time. There was a big battle during that time, and that led to Tony coming back as Iron Man with a different suit. I'm not sure, I'm trying to remember timeline-wise, when War Machine came into fruition in relation to all of that. But I've sounds like similar to you. I've popped in and out of Iron Man through various different storylines, and really enjoyed West Coast Avengers as a team. It was funny when you were saying Jim Rhodes as Iron Man. I'm like sitting here like, I'm saying no, but that sounds right too. So that's why I was looking it up, because I really wanted to be accurate and correct myself off of that piece. So you're right. The very first West Coast Avengers Iron Man was, in fact, Rhodey, with the guy who was here.
Cool. Score one for the sensei.
Yeah, for the 4-issue miniseries. Actually, I want to go back and reread those. It's funny. This conversation is doing exactly what I needed to do. I loved the original West Coast Avengers when it kicked off. I just loved the team. I liked the dynamic of it. It really, really fit at the time. So I have to go back and do some rereading. Read the miniseries first and then read the main series, just mainly to refresh my memory on what we're talking about here. I just liked the lineup. I thought they were just interesting characters. Jumping back to this particular storyline after seeing Rhodey and that whole piece going in, I actually like that she kind of caught on that it wasn't Rhodey. I mean, that it wasn't Tony, without catching on that it wasn't Tony, not really understanding who's in between. We jump back over to the villains and this whole lava storyline that was going on. And it's the piece where as they were going through and making the decision to go ahead and blow up that volcano, because the X-Men kind of saved the day, in that sequence, and they've got the opportunity to either have this cataclysm take place or not. They initiate it. I'm like sitting here, I'm like, how do you guys know you're right about this? Like, that is an awfully big roll of the dice that you're making right now with this one. It's the one piece of this that I questioned. And I actually like, though, that they were questioning it too. It's where I think it's really strong writing. But I'm like, wow, that's a choice you're making right there with the volcano.
Well, other big choice in this fight sequence, and again, I can remember as a kid saying, Cyclops, what are you doing? Wolvie's coming in, attacking from behind, taking out Molecule Man. Yeah. Cyclops blasts his arm, prevents it from being a kill strike to just being a massively damaging strike, to incapacitation strike on Molecule Man. I loved that sequence. Once again, it goes back to that classic battle going on between Wolverine and Cyclops about the kill.
Right.
Wolverine's a killer. Cyclops is not. Cyclops doesn't believe heroes should kill ever. Wolverine's like, well, I think it's okay. And 100% back, again, as a kid, I 100% back Wolvie on this call. Part of me is like, even as an adult, I'm like, that would have dramatically changed this series if Wolverine would have gutted him. If Wolverine would have, if Cyclops hadn't blocked the shot, if Wolverine would have 100% killed Molecule Man right here, just thinking how the series ends and what happens later on with Molecule Man and whatnot, this would have been dramatic change to the story. And again, I love Cyclops for doing what he did. I love Wolverine for doing what he did. This was another great moment hidden within some really cool fight sequences going on.
Do you remember Nightfall? And how they were showing us what it was like to get the Batman without any conscience, the Batman who would kill.
Yep.
You haven't read Ultimate Wolverine yet, have you?
No, I haven't yet. I want to.
You really need to, because it'll change your opinion.
Oh, cool.
Because you'll look at this and go, nope, Cyclops was right. Thank you, Cyclops, for doing what you did.
Well, I'll be honest with you. As a kid, I would argue that, but as an adult, I agree with you. Because I do, as an adult, I do like the no-kill code in the heroes. Mm-hmm. I admit fully, when I was a kid, when this was out, I was all on board with the, hey, you know what? You can kill some of the bad guys. It won't affect anything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, wait, Wolverine was an intriguing character when you're used to reading your traditional heroes. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the things I actually really liked about him was the fact that I think the Punisher did this too. To a different degree. Wolverine being embedded in the team, I think it had a different sort of effect than the Punisher does, because of the fact that you've got this team dynamic where you've got people with very different moral lines. I really loved everything about how they played out the team dynamic of the X-Men with this. I forgot how much I loved this era of the X-Men.
Yes,
I mean, it's weird to say. I've always loved the X-Men. I always reference the fact that I love the Claremont era of the X-Men. But I feel like this is just the way it played out so well in Secret Wars. I just love this particular dynamic.
And I don't know if I've said this on the comic or whatnot, but my love of comic books comes from the Claremont X-Men run. Mm-hmm. flat out. The reason, if there wasn't a Claremont run, I wouldn't have continued reading comic books.
Yeah.
His X writing kept me going, and I wanted more, feed me more. And that what got me branching out for trying this. Oh, read this. When I was in college, my buddy Hoach, he was like, hey, you got to read this. He put books in my hand, and it was funny because he knew, Hoach's real name is Joe, by the way, but everyone always called him Hoach. He knew that I was Claremont X-Men, so he knew what kind of writers were influenced by Claremont. So he was one of those guys who's like, oh, you'll like this. Oh, you'll like this. And he's handing me stuff. And he was a DC guy. And that's what got me reading DC stuff, was because he was, putting stuff in my hands. So it was kind of interesting that, whenever I read, I go back and reread stuff from this era. I'm reminded once again of why I love comic books, why I love reading comic books, why these things, just completely have me captivated. And again, I still love DC Universe and I love the Marvel Universe. And it's one of the things I'm so happy that we're doing what we're doing, because I get to read more of the Marvel stuff and I get to go back to it, and I get to continue on reading my DC stuff. I'm reading my Marvel stuff. I need more time in the day is what I need, but that's a whole nother side issue. Now,
it was dueling banjos with when the Claremont was running with that and DC for me, because when I discovered X-Men for that Belasco issue, I went back and eventually got everything of Claremont's predating it, and then read consistently. I've read every issue of Claremont's run. He wrote it for 16, 17 years. And then when he came back and did like Extreme X-Men and stuff like that, and, the various times he's come back and done miniseries, if Claremont's name's on it, I jump on it. It's one of those. I've read everything X-Men Claremont's done. It's more of my mind is blown over how much content I've read over the years that he wrote. But it was because of the fact that he had exactly what you're saying, that level of impact. It's even when we were doing exclusively DC on our show, if Claremont was jumping on something, that was always something immediately on my list that I would grab and read, just because there was a nostalgia fest to it. There's a certain way the man writes that I just really like and enjoy. And it's kind of cool to be able to reconnect with him again when he does these miniseries and different things along the way. He did a Nightcrawler series that was very good.
Yeah.
So there's really, really good stuff that's still coming out from him. He just did something with Wolverine. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the story right now, so please, I apologize because I'm in this mode. But the most recent series that he did, it was follow-up to a story that he'd done previously. It was really, really good. And I really enjoy the man's work.
Yes, I agree.
The Wasp sequence with the Lizard, where I like that he goes berserk when she's hit, because he's got this woman that's being kind to him, and it does show just the marriage of the humanity and the beast. Like, I always like characters like this, where he's still a villain. I mean, when the lizard's going to show up on the scene, there's a danger to people and all those pieces. Spidey needs to take him down. I still believe that. But I like when you get these kind of sequences where he does recognize the kindness and he turns on his quote-unquote teammates in those sequences. It was an interesting way to wrap this piece up. I feel so bad for Wasp. Wasp just wants to get back to her team. And every time she's trying to get back to her team, she's either been kidnapped or, she's being attacked or she's in some kind of forest. Now she's been caught by the bad guys. Her team doesn't really know where she is or even how to tap into where she's at. Speaking of her team, this cliffhanger is very, very cool, because I love that they give us a woman in the shadows that looks like she might be an enemy, and I can't wait to talk next episode about who she actually is.
Yeah.
Because it's a very cool character. At the time, I thought it was a really interesting choice to plug into this. And we'll have to talk a lot about this particular character and what she brings to the table for this particular story. I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address. Prefer to contact us that way. We are also proud to be part of a Facebook group community. And that's a great way if you want to just throw some quick hits up and some comments about any of our episodes. I post all of them up there really for the purpose of you want to go back to any of our older episodes and share your comments. They're all there. Definitely post your comments there. We love having your thoughts and feedbacks on the show. It's also a place, any of those methods are great ways to reach out to us with what you'd like to see next. We've got a list together of stories that we tentatively want to do on the list. But a lot of the recent stories that we've done have been off of listener recommendations. So if there's something DC, Marvel, Indie, across the board that you'd like us to do, throw it our way, and we'll definitely consider putting it on the list for upcoming episodes. RagingBullets.com, of course, is our show website, and it feeds into Twitter /X, and it feeds into our Facebook fan page. The About Us section of our show website is where you can connect with us on gaming platforms and personal social media. I'm every other week on Is It Jaws with Paul Spataro. We review movies over there, and on the Jaws 1 through 4 scale. We always have some great guests on that podcast, and I'm really proud to be a part of that. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seglin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have the Summer of Superman one-shot, 40% only $3.59, and DC Finest, Superman, Kryptonite, Nevermore, trade paperback, 50% off, only $19.99. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com. As I mentioned, I did a search for Secret Wars, and you can do this for any kind of thing that you're looking for over there. They have an amazing selection. If you're looking for hardcovers, omnibuses, absolute editions, trade paperbacks, whatever you're looking for, they have all of that available at a discount. I did a search for Secret Wars, the current story that we're reviewing right now, Marvel Superhero Secret Wars trade paperback, $34.99 regularly, 30% off, only $21.69. Secret Wars 2, if you never read the sequel and have always wanted to, $34.99 regularly, 38% off, only $21.69. They have the Omnibus by Hickman that I shouted out last week, $100 regularly, 46% off, only $54. You can wish list the upcoming re-release of Bendis' Omnibus, The Secret Wars by Brian Michael Bendis. That's going to be released April 2nd of 2025. The nice part about these wish lists is they'll remind you when those books are coming out. You can go ahead and get them again at a discount. So definitely check out InStockTrades.com for any of your collected edition needs. Our next episode, Jim and I are going to be back. We're going to be continuing the next 3 issues of Secret Wars. We're also going to throw that Thor issue in there that we talked about in there. It's Thor 383. So if you want to read that beforehand to check in with us, we're trying to make a kind of comprehensive wrap-up of Secret Wars with the next 2 episodes. So we'll be talking about that next week. See you then.
Bye!
When Sean and Jim decided long ago to do a weekly comic book podcast show, they started slowly, then grew strong. To listen now, you can't go wrong. The Raging Bullets Comics Podcast Show.